Of the Winona County Planning Commission to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as most of you realize, it doesn't take an Einstein to realize we're going to be here for quite a while tonight. So let's try and be as efficient as possible. First of all, the item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
No. Stephanie wants us to put an explanation of the new findings of facts. And I would recommend that we put it after the approval of the minutes. Is that okay with the rest of the commission?
Yeah.
Somebody make a motion?
Also move.
All right, second? Second. All right. Any disagreement? All those in favor of approval of the agenda, amended agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It's carried. Okay. Approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any points that they want to discuss? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Okay, Arlie makes a motion. Second? Cherie seconds it. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's carried. Okay, Stephanie, it's your turn.
So at the chairperson's request, we did some revising of the way that we were presenting our proposed minutes and proposed findings of fact in the conditional use permits. This is something that we've used at the Board of Adjustment for its last two meetings. We used it about three weeks ago. Learned some lessons, used it again today. Things went much more smoothly than they had in the past. Essentially what we are providing for you is a draft starting point of proposed findings. So you're not trying to come up with reasonings on your own. These are either verbatim from the staff report or a two-sentence synopsis of what's contained in the staff analysis. But essentially what it is the based on what's contained in the record, what the staff believes an appropriate finding could be. You have the option of changing those, modifying those. That's why the big words of draft are stamped on there. These are not final unless you choose to make them so. You can change. One thing you'll note on your copy that you have right now, there are some red underlined pieces. On the ones I just printed, this one didn't print in color, so I underlined them for you. But the other ones you'll see, the words in red essentially is to indicate a criteria that it is believed is not met based on what's in the staff analysis. So if you agree with that, you can leave it. If you don't, you can change it. And the same with if a findings is consistent with one of the criteria, you can change that as well. The one thing to keep in mind is that if you are changing these, it does need to be supported. So if we're revising language in the findings, the italicized, we need to be relying on facts and applying those to the criteria. And same thing if we're changing the will not, does not. It does need to be supported by the facts in the record. One of the things that this would allow you to do is on, sometimes we have those really, what seems like a simple conditional use permit. There's just no question, of course, the permit should be issued. You can finish your public hearing, have a motion to adopt the proposed findings of fact as presented, and we can go from there, and it's done. So it can hopefully streamline the process. That's what we're going for, and it also gives you that starting point for findings. So any questions? Yes, sir.
I understand if we do the whole works and agree with what you have in the findings of facts, but what if we say, agree with the first 5 and then we don't agree with 6, can we just do the first 5 and then take 6?
And you don't have to vote on each and every one individually. You can just address the ones that you feel need to be discussed. You can, as long as there is an understanding that this is what's being proposed, and if that's what you want to adopt, other than 1 or 2 you choose to modify, just modify the ones and then we can adopt it from there. You can just basically amend this document at certain points without having to discuss each and every word on it.
And then every member of the commission can ask
Motion, I would suggest a motion to amend the proposed findings to whatever you choose,
by any member.
as long as it's seconded and,
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I understand.
okay?
The rest of us,
Yes.
any questions?
And as we experienced with the Board of Adjustment earlier today, as well as last time, there might be some questions as we go through these the first few times. Feel free to ask. We're more than happy to help walk you through things. But I know, at least for the last petition we had at the Board of Adjustment today, it seemed like it made things a lot more efficient and effective. So if there's any questions, I'll be over there.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. I guess without further ado, Kay, you don't have anything else for now?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think
Okay, then we will move on to new business, docket number 9/2117-01. Consider the petition of Leon Miller of Sandstone Drive, Utica, Minnesota, to allow a private cemetery to be located within the Agricultural Resource Conservation District pursuant to Chapter 10.4.6, parentheses 7 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. Staff, does Eric?
At this point, I don't believe the representative of property owner is here. Maybe you may make that request, and if not, I guess staff would recommend to maybe move that down further to allow the applicant to show up. If that's
Okay. Anybody have any disagreement on the commission with that? Well, hearing none, Stephanie, that's okay? Okay.
We'll be here tonight at some point.
Okay, so then let's move on to docket number 2. Consider the PC 9/2117-02. Consider the petition of Randolph Erdman to allow for the construction of a home on less than 40 acres on an approximate parcel size of 4 acres pursuant to Chapter 10.4.6, parentheses 36 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. Staff, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Like you said, it's a dwelling on a new parcel that's being created, 4 acres instead of the required 40.
Sorry. This particular.
There's a map of the, I think this is in your packet as well. This petition was heard at the Board of Adjustment last month for a feedlot variance to allow a feedlot 560 feet. Actually, it's to allow the dwelling 560 feet from the feedlot instead of the required 1,000. That was granted by the Board of Adjustment. So the petitioners have followed up with the Planning Commission this month. So that, just want to give you a little background. That was before the Board of Adjustment. It was approved last month. And now you're hearing the conditional use permit for the 4-acre lot. The petitioner's home is right here, and they own, I think, a number of parcels along County Road 3, in between County Road 3 and Little Trout Valley Road, which is at the bottom of the map here. The new parcel and the new dwelling is for the petitioner's daughter. So it is to allow a family member to move back to the family farm and creating a new lot for her to build a home on. I'll go to the next slide. This is a picture of the proposed building site. The building site is actually, if you can see, it's going to be right out in the field, kind of along the edge of this corn field here. They proposed to share a well, so they're going to run pipe from the existing well at Randy's home over to the dwelling here, or at least that was the plan that they submitted to us. The slopes on the site are approximately 14%, so slopes of 12% or more do require an erosion control plan. So they'll be submitting an erosion control plan along with their development certificate if this were to be approved. Class 4 soils on the building site. The parcel itself and the remaining land out here, there are some class 1 to 3 soils that are we have requirements for within our ordinance. And I think they kind of follow this topo line a little bit, so they do kind of inch up into here and around a little bit, but not on the building site, and certainly not 40% of the proposed parcel. So those are not a consideration for this site. Those are the basic kind of details of the petition. We do have a video that we can show now. And then if you have any questions, you can ask after the video. That is a view of County Road 3 to the south towards Highway 61. We're panning around to the building site. That's about the location. If you look real closely, you can see the stakes on the site there. We're going to pan around towards the existing dwelling on the property, which is past that tree line on the right. This video was also used for the Board of Adjustment, so we're going to walk across the street and just have a quick shot of the feedlot on the neighboring property. And then back towards the point of beginning. And that'll end the staff presentation. If you have questions for me right off the bat, feel free to ask. Otherwise, you can ask as we go through and discuss.
Lou?
Sure.
Do you have the picture that shows the location of Randy Erdman's house where the well is going to be? Or did I miss that? Or
The well isn't marked on the map.
okay.
I think Randy could probably show you where that's located on the site. I don't have the information handy, but this again is the dwelling, I believe, here. And so the well is somewhere in that vicinity. You can see there's some topography here, so they will have to trench, down, back up to get up to the home if they end up doing that. One other note, kind of on the subject of the well, they've also had somebody out there to look at the soils for the septic system, and excuse me. And the soils are adequate for locating a type 1 system on the site, so a standard type system should be able to be accommodated.
Any other questions for Lou? Hearing none. Do we ask for the owners or applicants to speak now? Or
If they want to, yeah.
do the applicants wish to make any comments at this point? Go ahead.
I'm Randolph Erdman, and I'm for
Well, speak into the microphone. Give us your name and address, please.
I'm Randolph Erdman. I live at County Road 3 here, 27467. And I'm for this petition because if my daughter had to buy 40 acres of land, she would never be able to afford to build a house, and she's working 3 jobs now just to do this. So the well is located right on the front side of my shop there, which is right here. 625 feet, I think we need to dig to use our well.
Okay.
So that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
At this time, I entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, Donnie moved and Kelly seconded. Anyone? There's no discussion, or is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of opening the public hearing on docket number 2, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against PC 921-17-02, please come forward, state your name and address, and we'll let anyone that wishes to speak, speak. Just be as concise and brief as possible, and go ahead.
My name's Weston Erdman. I live at 27356 County Road 3, right across the road. I own the building site and the feedlot that they're up against. I came to the first feedlot meeting. It was moved. I didn't know until afterwards. I drive truck. I didn't make the second feedlot meeting. There's an appeal process. I'm in the middle of that. As far as the 40-acre goes, I've lived on this property for 5 years. I spent a lot of money to live there, to live out in the country. In the 5 years I've been there, 4 houses have already been built around me. The other concern is, how many people is he going to let build on this property? Is this going to be the only house? Is he going to build 5 more houses? Do we start here? Where do we end? And I guess, I moved out here for my kids to be out in the country and be able to run around. And I feel the rate Winona County is going, by the time I retire, I'll be living in a suburb, not on a country farm anymore. That's all I have.
Thank you. For the second time, does anyone wish to speak either for or against docket number 2? For the third and final time, does anyone wish to speak for or against PC 921-17-02?
Move to close the public hearing.
Steve moves to close the public hearing. Second?
I second.
All right. Vince seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing is now closed. Any discussion? Any questions?
Can Lou tell us how many other buildings, domiciles, are within a half a mile of the proposed dwelling?
Well, I can tell you the closest vicinity here, there's Randy's dwelling here. There's a dwelling across the street here. And there is another dwelling up here, just on the edge of the map. There are also, I don't know about a half mile. I'd have to scale it out and have a look at that closer. But if you go down the road here, and I know that folks that live out in this area would be able to tell you exactly how many there are, but there are a couple of dwellings along the road. Down here, as you cross the intersection with Little Trout Valley, oops, sorry, Joey, I'm kind of hitting you with the light there. But there are a number of dwellings, and as you go down, especially this way towards Highway 61, we've permitted a handful of dwellings in just the last few years as well. So, it's kind of like Apple Blossom Drive. It's Apple Blossom over the years is a desirable place to live, and it has seen a lot of, residential development over the years, large lot development. This area is similar. It's got really good views of the valleys and stuff. It's a desirable place to live, and so we have seen quite a little bit of development pressure in this area as well.
Are some of these dwellings on Erdman property, or these are not related?
No, these would be on neighboring properties.
Okay.
I don't know how far back, that goes, but I know that, Randy's property is, this is the first split of that property.
Lou, if the land between Randy's house and the proposed new house, you say that is already been landscaped or whatever, is there any consideration that that would be appropriate for a new home?
The location between this site and
Right.
the existing dwelling, this area here.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this would be on the other side of his shed here, I mean, the problem with this site is it has seen, there's been quite a bit of grading and earthwork to build his shed. It's been disturbed fairly heavily. He received quite a bit of fill here a number of years ago. And I don't know about like sewer, to accommodate sewer, I would say it would be not a great location on on those fill soils.
That's just not what we're being asked. We're being
Well,
asked,
I
we're being asked
understand,
there.
I understand that.
I mean, if we did it, each one of us might do it different, but this is
Yeah.
this is what we're being asked.
Okay.
I mean, their property, I wish I had a larger map of this. There might be one in your packets. If we blew it out a little bit more to see the location of his property, the extent, I mean, I don't know that there's much of a difference. It's better than, having it in the middle of the field. I mean, there's worse sites on the property to locate a dwelling, I would say. And for the neighbor, I mean, for the feedlot operator, I don't think it's going to matter much if it's here or here or here. That's true. I mean, if you can see this green here is the 1,000-foot setback. So there was if you're looking at it for the variance, down along the south here and on that part as it comes around here, there were some areas outside the 1,000-foot setback that were available.
Have we had an application, the petitioner, not the petitioner, but the gentleman with the feedlot? So he said he's going through an appeals process. Is that an administrative appeal or is that an appeal to overturn the variance? What's the appeal?
Well, I would assume, I don't know what kind of action he's taken yet, but I would assume that he's appealing to district court? The Board of Adjustment?
To the court, because at this point they said it's a legal action and no longer a board of directors or anybody, so nobody in Winona County knows how to do this, so I contacted lawyers.
Is it premature for us to be dealing with this CUP until that legal issue is resolved?
There's been nothing filed at this time. He has the right to file, but we can't base decisions on what he may choose to do.
So there is no officially there's no appeal.
Not at this time.
Yeah, not that we're aware of.
So
I do have
Chris.
a couple questions for the petitioner, if he could come back up.
Okay, would Randy come back up?
Thanks. How many kids do you have?
5.
Just 5? And are you intending to give land to any of the others?
My son will probably buy the other 40 acres.
Okay. And is your daughter going to be helping with the farm? It looks like she's a teacher.
She's a teacher, she works at Quick Trip, and she does help me at home. And she also is a basketball coach for the Bangor school.
Okay, but she does help you with the farm. And does your son as well?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Is there any other questions or discussion?
I will support this petition. That's consistent with my past action of supporting natural and common law rights of individuals to pass property to their children and grandchildren. I think that's sacrosanct. I appreciate the concerns of the neighbor. However, even if you go out in the Dakotas or Montana and buy up a couple thousand acres, everyone's faced with change over time. And that's a problem for those that don't like that, but it's part of the program.
Steve?
Yeah, I'd support the petition. I understand the concerns of the feedlot operator, but that's a decision that's been made by the Board of Adjustment, and it's not our position to question them. We've been given variance that's been approved, and we don't have any. I understand your frustration, but that's not what we're charged with tonight. We're charged with permitting a property on less than 40 acres, which comes before us routinely. So we're not responsible for the Board of Adjustments, nor do we have authority over them, or does the county board, or pretty much anyone. What they decide is what they decide.
I guess I have one comment at this point. I've been working with planning and zoning since 1971, before the first comprehensive land use plan was approved. And one of our biggest talking points or argument points has always been what number of acres we were going to allow a house to be built on without getting a conditional use permit. And one of the missions of the Winona County plan is to save agricultural land. And one of the ways that we were trying to do that is to make sure that you had 40 acres upon which to build a house. And I realized that in spite of that, you can do like this applicant just did and ask for a CUP to get around that. But I spent many years, and that was the consensus of the commissioners of Winona County, that that's how they wanted it. And yet, from past experience, we have not adhered to that very well. In fact, I can only think of maybe one or two instances where we didn't grant them the CUP. And so it begs me to think that, why did I work for all these years when we're just going to ignore it anyway? That's my comment. Is there any other comments or discussion? Hearing none. What's your wishes?
I move approval of petition with the conditions.
Oh, yeah. Do I have to read them first?
You don't have to. They're exactly the same as what was cited in the staff report. As far as motions go, I would suggest that the motion be that the Planning Commission recommend adoption of the findings of fact and the approval of the conditional use permit with the attached conditions on all bases.
Okay. Does anybody, well, we should ask about the findings of fact first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, does anybody have any discussion on the findings of fact for docket number 2? Or anything they want to question or?
I'm in agreement with the findings of fact as presented to us and as they.
That was Don's motion.
From the packet, so.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, I move approval of the petition based upon
Including
staff
these.
recommendations and our findings of facts.
And with the conditions, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we're all clear?
Yeah, motion in a second.
Yeah, okay. Now, you second it? Okay. You got that, Ann? Okay. There any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of docket number 2 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This is passed. So, the Winona County Planning Commission recommends this approves of this docket or CUP, and the next step will be, it'll have to go before the Winona County Commissioners, and they will weigh in on and decide if they approve or disapprove of our actions. Thank you and good luck. Let's see. Did docket number 1 get here yet, or? Okay. Well, then let's go to docket number 3. And so we're going to consider the petition of Heritage Hills Dairy, Parker Bylington, to allow modifications to an existing animal feedlot that results in a feedlot in excess of 300 animal units pursuant to Chapter 10.4.6.1 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. Staff, Emily?
Good evening. This is a staff presentation for the petition as Chairman just read off.
Let's see.
So this proposal is to add a freestall barn onto this existing feedlot. Freestall barn is proposed to measure 204 feet by 124 feet. With the addition of that building will come an increase in animal numbers. The petitioner is proposing to add 499 animal units, with their total tally of animal units at this feedlot to be 998 animal units. So that breaks down to 694 head of mature dairy cows, 16 heifers, and 76 calves. This current feedlot is operating under an existing conditional use permit, number 1068. That was issued back in 2007 to the previous feedlot operator, and then it was modified again back in 2010 to address some conditions on the liquid manure storage management. So I'm just going to give a brief rundown of the feedlot and how it lays out today. The facility has 3 freestaller barns right now that house their milking stock, with the parlor located in this area here. It also has some open lot areas. All of the runoff from the open lot areas is diverted or drained into this existing liquid manure storage area. This is an earthen or clay-lined basin on the slopes with a concrete floor. As the operation stands today, this pit has about a 6-month storage capacity. You'll also notice that there is this structure on the eastern side of the feedlot, and this is a wall that was constructed as a result of the CUP issued in 2007, and this acted as a visual barrier as well as an odor disbursement, I guess you could say, structure following that CUP. Located just north of County Road 14 is the calf hutch area. And then the feed storage area here, feed is located on a concrete pad on bunkers and covered with plastic. I also want to note that the petitioners took over ownership of this feedlot back in December of 2015. So I'm going to jump to a 360 view of the proposed construction site of the freestall barn. We're going to start looking north here. We're going to be looking east towards the existing liquid manure storage area and the nearest neighbor to the east. There you see the top of the silo. We're looking south towards the existing freestall barns and milking parlor. Now we're looking due south. Moving southwest towards the feedlot operator's residence. West towards the feed storage area. And then back to north. Staff conducted an analysis to determine how this proposal met feedlot-related setbacks that are outlined in the Winona County zoning ordinance. So this proposed construction does indeed meet all private and public well setbacks, meets property line setbacks, and any road center line setbacks. As I mentioned before, the nearest neighbor is located to the east at a distance of approximately 350 feet. The proposed construction does not further encroach that already existing distance. That red circle that I have put on this map represents a 1,000-foot distance. So I take a look and see if there are any environmentally sensitive features such as sinkholes, perennial streams, making sure there aren't any shoreline or floodplain areas located in that distance. So there are no sensitive features that would restrict or prohibit this construction. There, as well as no public facilities like churches or schools or community water supplies that we need to worry about. In addition, staff have noted that this proposal fits the character of Utica Township. We have also received the township acknowledgement form that indicates the township is in support of this petition. They also crossed the box that said that they intend to submit a written comment explaining their support. I reached out to the township chair and he clarified that they do not intend to submit written comment. I also considered the environmental impact of this expansion as well as the impact of the surrounding neighboring dwellings. So I ran the offset odor model that basically predicts how many days out of the calendar year we could predict an odor occurrence from that nearest neighbor. The model predicted that with this expansion, the environment will be about 85% annoyance free. So that breaks down to 55 days out of the calendar year that odor would be detected following this expansion. And that is an increase of 4 days from how the operation is currently at. The petitioner predicts a slight increase in traffic. They plan to increase the number of employees at their farm by 3, so they would have 11 total employees. They plan to have an increase in the number of trucks that deliver sand for animal bedding. They would have 6 trucks come once a week to deliver sand. Then they also would plan to have an increase in milk truck frequency. Right now they have the milk truck come and pick up their product twice per day, 1 truck twice per day. With this proposal, it would be increased to 2 milk trucks coming twice per day. Staff notes that this proposal meets the permitting requirements of Minnesota Rule Chapter 7020, as well as the permitting requirements of the zoning ordinance, Chapter 8. And because it is promoting agriculture in our county, staff found this harmonious with the comprehensive plan. Staff also notes that the petitioners have submitted a manure management plan that describes how they will land apply the increased volume of manure produced by the added animals. The next thing I want to talk about is just some considerations that have happened after public notice. I've included in your packets some comments that were received. I received comments from the Lewiston NRCS office, so those comments have been spelled out as well as my response to those comments. And then I also received some comments from a private citizen, which are also included.
Have the page numbers on those?
I believe so. They should be pages 120 and 121. So one comment in particular that I want to talk about quick, because I've been asked to, is the storage capacity of this pit. As I mentioned before, the pit currently has 6 months of storage. So when you have double the number of animals, common sense tells you then the storage would be decreased by half. So instead of 6 months storage, we would have 3 months storage. Well, the petitioner is intending to manage the pit throughout the growing season by drawing down the pit after they cut hay, so then they can put a layer of liquid manure on top of that cut alfalfa field. So that action has been described in their manure management plan. And so the petitioner is thinking that from the time that they would have to completely clean out their manure pit, it'd be about 5 months. So that's where you see that 5-month storage in that manure management plan. Another thing that I want to talk a little bit about is this feedlot's site history and how there were, items of noncompliance noted. And I want to make it clear that there weren't any pending violations that the previous feedlot operator experienced or may have had that went into the current operators. I went on site this June to do a routine feedlot inspection, and I noted some areas of noncompliance during that inspection. One of them was that there was an element missing of their manure management plan, and that was that their soil phosphorus tests were expired. Those are required by our county ordinance and state law to be done once every 4. And so that was a corrective action item that was put on my inspection report. The petitioners intend to do some grid sampling this fall, so those soil phosphorus tests will be updated and incorporated into their manure management plan before December 31st of this year. Another area of noncompliance that I noted was noncompliance of the existing conditional use permit. And those 2 conditions that weren't being met were the manure additive that was required to be put into the pit, as well as an 8-inch crust that was supposed to be maintained in the pit. And these were management practices to help reduce odor. And so you'll notice on the conditions that I've proposed for this modified CUP that those aren't in there. And that is because that since the Byingtons have taken over this operation, I have not received any odor complaints from this facility. So whether they're doing something new in the way they manage this feedlot that's not resulting in odor complaints, it's hard to know. So instead of carrying those conditions over, what I recommended is to put a condition in the modified CUP that would include the implementation and the maintenance of an odor management plan. So this plan identifies components of the feedlot that have the potential to create odor, and it has the operators identify what they're doing right now to handle any odor. And then on top of that, they assign practices that they would use should they receive complaints from neighbors. So that if you look at the plan closely, you'll see that they've selected that they would use a manure additive and use or establish a crust back on the pit should they get complaints in the future. So that's how I dealt with that non-compliant item. Instead of having it be verbatim into the modified CUP, have the flexibility of an owner management plan instead.
There was a third one, the well water chemistry test, not in compliance.
Yeah, that returned to compliance. If you look on your page.
That was returned then on August.
Yep, exactly. Yes, Chair.
Emily, did you answer the question about whether there's sufficient land for the application of all this manure? And if so, where did I miss it?
So if you flip to the section where it describes their manure management plan, we're going to be looking on page 97 of your packet.
Okay.
Okay. You look at the lower left-hand corner of that page, and you'll see total acres of 554. So that's how many acres that they have assigned for manure. And then you take a look at those bars that say source 1, source 2, source 3. Those are all the manure sources that they have on their feedlot that they have to deal with. And you see the amount that they've applied there and the amount remaining, which is 0. So that indicates that all the manure that's expected to be generated at this feedlot have been dealt with.
Okay. Yes.
I think you had, in the original CUP, they were to have an 8-inch crust plus an additive. And that was part of the manure management plan.
That was part of their conditional use permit. Yeah.
But now, are we just ignoring that unless a neighbor complains?
We're not requiring those conditions with the modified CUP.
They might have to come back with them under Emily's proposal. There might be improvements in the technology and the methods that those would no longer be appropriate, and we trust Emily to handle that.
And was the phosphorus test just overlooked, or was it just decided not to?
It's hard to say. It just wasn't done. I don't ask why it's not done. I just say it's not there. Make sure you do it.
And that doesn't say it wouldn't be in compliance if we had it, we just don't have it. We don't know that there's too much phosphorus there. We just don't know, right?
Well, I mean, we use their expired soil phosphorus test from the last time that it was done. So that's how we determine if there's any fields that have a high level of phosphorus, then we use a special management tool. So when we get those soil tests resampled, they're going to be incorporated into the manure management plan. We can make any changes to the plan then to make sure that any high phosphorus soils are addressed appropriately. That answers your question.
Arlie, you're saying that they've got enough storage area for 3 months. What are they going to do in the wintertime?
So in the fall, they plan to do a complete drawdown. And then in the wintertime, they have assigned fields in their manure management plan that should they need to haul during the winter, they can do so. Winter application of manure is not prohibited in Winona County depending on the size of your feedlot operation. So for an operation this size, they are able to spread during the winter as long as that's not done in a floodplain area.
So what is the case if, we don't know, what if it's froze?
If the ground is froze?
Well, little manure pit. What are they going to do? That should be a plan ahead.
And that's a good question for the petitioners.
I know what the answer probably will be, but I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah.
Kelly?
Back to page 97. You noted, amount applied, acres applied. Is this what has been done, or is this their plan that they will do?
This is the plan. So how I deal with these, Okay. So basically what happens is then at the end of the crop year, the manure management plan gets altered a little bit to reflect what was actually done. And they will start their 2018 manure management plan that will show, or this is the 2018 plan, but basically any changes that get done then get incorporated into the next crop year so we can account for any carryover nitrogen of the rates that were actually used. Because these rates basically are just a plan. The columns in gray show the maximum rate that they're allowed to use.
Okay.
And then that column to the right shows the rates that they plan to use. So as long as they don't go above those rates listed in gray, that's legal, a legal application.
And I thought I read somewhere in here, there are a lot of pages in this packet this time. I thought I read that they were intending to perhaps look to other landowners to find other places to apply manure as well?
Yeah, I've had a conversation with the petitioners about that. They certainly have sufficient acreage to handle the manure that is intended to be produced, but that would be a question better directed towards the petitioner if they have entered into any agreements.
Yep.
Are there any more questions for Emily? Okay, thank you, Emily. At this time, does the petitioner have any comments they would like to make?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Your name and
My name is Parker Byington, 19374 County Road 14, Lewiston, Minnesota. We hail from the state of Washington. We moved 2 years ago here to the state of Minnesota, left Grant County, Washington. My parents sold 160 acres of farm ground to move here to Winona County and to milk cows. And that is why we're here, and we're here to raise our families and to milk cows, and we have a lot of passion for what we do. Go straight to the question about the manure. We know how to work in the hot and the cold, and it gets cold here in Minnesota, and we're learning about that. We're going into our third winter now, and we're still here. So we so far have not had a problem with being able to break through the ice of the lagoon and haul, if necessary, through the lagoon because the bottom, it doesn't freeze unless it gets, it just won't freeze. And if there's, a big crust of ice on it, you can take a Traco and bust a hole in it and get the lagoon pump down into the lagoon to haul the manure. The other question that came up was about space to haul the manure to as far as the acreage. Under the manure management plan, we have a home for all of the manure. We would like to take advantage of all of the nitrogen that our cows produce organically and turn it back to the soil. So at this time, we do not have a contract to release ownership of manure, but we do have a neighbor that has verbally agreed to take manure if that be the case that we need to take manure to another place off of our existing land. We run 136 of our owned acres, and then we rent a total of 550 acres is what we farm. So there's sufficient under the plan. The manure or the soil phosphorus tests will come back, and then we may need to adjust the plan accordingly. But we do have real actual soil data in the test. It's just outdated according to the current law of the 4 years. It was outdated by 1 year. And I appreciate Emily putting this all together for us. We've worked hard on this project, trying to be as prepared as we could tonight. The one thing that I wanted to make a clarification is the milk truck traffic. Right now we have one milk tanker coming in once a day, and that would change to one milk tanker twice a day. So it would be from 1 to 2 stops per day. So other than that, our family has milked cows. We milk cows in Washington, 180 cows, and moved here to do the same thing. We moved here for feed availability, for land, price of feed. Water is a big issue in the West as far as irrigation, and here it falls from the sky, so it helps with costs. And there's a lot of area to process milk. A lot of plants here, a lot of infrastructure, and so that's what attracted us here to the Midwest and specifically to Winona County. Winona County is the number 2 dairy producing county in the state, and we'd like to keep it that way. If you listen to the advertisements on the Lanesboro Sales Commission, you can hear that there's a herd dispersing, a dairy herd dispersing just about every Friday. I think we're going on the 5th Friday in a row. Tomorrow, if you want to buy some cows, go down to Lanesboro, and there'll be a herd dispersing. We want to keep dairy cows here in Winona. We know that it's a competitive industry. We have a lot on our shoulders as far as feeding our communities, and that's what we're here to do, is to take care of our cows, take care of our families, and take care of our communities. And other than that, we're excited for this proposal. It'll do a lot for our farm as far as efficiencies, as far as the environmental impact. It takes us 2,000 gallons out of the ground of water per day just to wash down our milking facilities. And that doesn't change whether you have 300 cows going through the parlor or 600 cows going through the parlor. So our efficiency on water usage is going to go dramatically down, as well as we're going to be able to plant an additional 200 acres of alfalfa to our ground. Corn and bean ground will come away into alfalfa and keep the soil down. We saw disastrous areas this spring where the soil erodes, and planting more acres of alfalfa will keep less runoff into the Mississippi. So those are some of the things that we're excited about. Efficiency is the bottom line, keeping our parlor efficient. We're down 12 hours out of the day, and that's milking our cows 3 times a day. The parlor sits idle 3 times, at least 12 hours out of the day. So being able to keep that parlor full and keep it efficient keeps the business going, keeps a viable business for us to be here. Everything goes back, to when I was a boy, milking cows with my dad. It takes me back to, the old double 4 milking parlor, sitting on the milking stool. I was just little. I have a son myself, 3 years old, and I remember being his age, sitting on the chair, watch my dad milk the cows, and it's definitely what I have passion for, and that's what we're here to do. And if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
I have a couple questions. Now, do you scrape into this lagoon, or
Yes, we have a skid steer machine that we have a tire scraper on the front of it that we scrape into the lagoon 3 times a day. Every time the cows are milked and taken out of the pen, we take and skid steer, scrape the manure into the lagoon.
Okay, so according to the site plan that we saw there, now the manure from the proposed facility, how is that going to get into the lagoon?
So there will be a cement pad just to the south of that green box where the proposed construction will be, a cement pad that will scrape towards the south, and everything will be sloped as well into the lagoon for, and we'll take this, basically come out of the building, take a 90-degree turn, and scrape into the lagoon with the skid steer.
And in other words, the entrance ramp to the parlor is going to be on the west side of the proposed facility?
Entrance ramp to
The parlor is going to stay the same.
Well, yeah, I know, but from the freestall barn that you're proposing to
Yes.
build, you're going to have to get the cows from there to the parlor, right?
Okay, so the first, the cement open lot, I guess the one more to the left towards the west, is going to be the new alleyway for taking, thanks Emily, this will help. Right here
Yep.
is where the cows will walk out of this barn, down through here, into the parlor, and back.
So you're going to have like a walkway
Yeah.
from one barn to the other?
Yep, so right here is where we'll have a cement pathway to get to the new construction.
And then you haul the manure then to the east of all of your present building site, right?
The lagoon is on the east.
Where's the lagoon?
The lagoon is right here.
Yeah.
It's pumped out on the north side, isn't it?
Or is it pumped out of the north side, or?
So there's a pad to set the lagoon pump right here, and then there's also a pad over here to set the lagoon pump.
Oh, okay.
Two options. And then there's a ramp over here to haul out solids.
Okay, all right. Is there any other questions? Yeah. Chris?
Thanks, and I can tell that you have passion. So when you, since you took over the farm in 2015, and we have a list of issues with noncompliance prior to that, can you talk to me a little bit about how you're doing things differently? And then about the situation when you came back with this CUP and Emily found some things that were out of compliance?
Yeah, so we are definitely trying to do the best job that we can and stay in compliance. So I guess the first thing is, let me see here, the first item of non-compliance was, can you rephrase the question, or I lost my train of thought? I'm so excited about this that
I can tell.
Took 100 miles away.
So when you discovered that things were out of compliance, I assume you were unaware of that.
Yeah, so we took over the operation in December of 2015, and we, at the same time, needed to learn everything about the farm, you know, where the light switches are, where the pumps, you know, turn on and off, and what pipes are going to freeze first, and then which ones freeze second, and then third and fourth. So we definitely have a long list of things that we need to do logistically, and we understand that there are many things to stay in compliant for. For example, we need to get our phosphorus tests in. We would have liked to have them in for this meeting, but our fields have crops on them currently, so pushing back, you know, to this fall until we get the crops off. As far as things that we're doing different, we want to have a good relationship with our neighbors. They babysit our boys, and so far, you know, we care about, you know, the odors that our farm emits. As far as specific things that we have not done, and it is a rule with me and our employees, we do not dump waste milk into the lagoon, and any waste milk that'll go there is going to let off more odors than just normal manure. Additionally, we also have a high forage percent in the diet versus concentrates, which would be the grains, and so any excess grains that go through the cow and make it into the manure ferment and smell worse. So we try and we have our percent forage in the diet higher than before. or I guess when we started, and we feel that that is making a difference as well. As far as, there was another item that probably needs to be addressed as far as the non-compliance. Can you remind me which one that is?
Really, I just wanted to see how that felt, to know that you weren't in compliance and to get a sense of how you feel about what the rules are. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You stated that you're going to have milk picked up twice a day, which I understand, and I sell my milk to the same co-op you do. Would you state for the record what AMPI told you about milking more cows?
Yes, at this time, AMPI is not looking for any additional owners to take on milk in the co-op, but there's no quota for the current members, which we are a current member, and they said that they would like to see young producers take on more cows, and that the market is available to take more milk and process it through AMPI. And for us, that means twice a day pickup through our bulk tank.
Just a clarification, that's almost the exact words that the CEO of AMPI told me this afternoon, so thank you.
So you want a CUP permit?
What's that? Any other questions at this time?
I have a question.
Okay. Kelly.
Is this the only dairy that your family runs?
This is the only dairy that our family runs. We ran a dairy back in Washington and sold all the cows previously to moving here. And now my grandpa in Washington owns additional farm ground that he kept. My dad sold his portion, but the dairy cows and the dairy herd were sold prior, and the dairy parlor now sits vacant.
Okay. And the way in the packet it says the county received change of ownership for feedlot facility, meaning County Byington as feedlot owner operator. Does that also mean you own the parcel of land? I mean, is that the?
Yeah, the state, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency requires any feedlot operation that changes hands to submit a change of ownership form. So it's a legality of the feedlot rule.
But you're saying feedlot operator, if a feedlot changes hands, you could be leasing the land and being the feedlot operator. So I guess my question is, do you own the land?
I do not own the land. My parents, Terry and Elizabeth, under T&E Farms, own the land, and that is clarified. I sent a written clarification of the entity structure that we have. My wife and I are 75% owners of the operation, Heritage Hills Dairy LLC, and the operating entity which we own, which we have stock in the cows and feed and machinery, which is the operation, then rents the ground from T&E Farms. But we also have a long-term agreement with my parents on a transition plan to then purchase the real estate, and the rate has been set forth and on a contract for deed.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, thank you. Steve moves to open the public hearing. Or should I? Okay, go ahead. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Chris seconds it. All those in favor of the motion to open the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing for docket number 3, 921-17-03 is now open. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against this proposal?
Yeah, I'm going to speak for it.
Bill, you got to say your name and address.
My name is Bill Rokamp. I live at 130 Oscamp Circle in Winona. I am the former owner of this farm. And I don't think I can express how happy I am that I found, or we kind of found each other a family of this caliber to run my dairy. And we made the decision, my wife and I, probably, I would say probably about 5 years ago, that, we have 2 daughters. They got their own careers going. And so there was nobody in the family to take the farm over. And we decided that we were going to retire. And so we did some things, to the farm. To get it ready to sell. I mean, we built a brand new double 12 milking parlor, pretty much state of the art at that time. And the parlor I did have was a double 6 that I got my money's worth out of that because we ran it for like 42 years. My dad built it in 72, I think, or something like that. But anyway, it needed to be done. And in order to make the farm attractive, I invested pretty heavily and put this new parlor in. But also, Gene and I had pretty high requirements for who we were going to sell our farm to. It's a 3rd-generation farm. My grandpa bought it in 1917. And the Rocan family has spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears getting it to where it is now. And I might be kind of biased, but it's one of the best farms. It ranks right up there in Monona County. And so we had pretty high expectations, high qualifications. And when I met the Byingtons the first time, I knew they were the family within 15, 20 minutes. I mean, they are just great people. Hardworking, honest, God-fearing, and they're smart. Very smart. Parker's got his master's degree in dairy production. Agriculture, yep. And Catherine, what is your?
I have just a general in this question.
Just a general, okay. But anyway, yeah. She's got her hands full. So I just, it does my heart good to see what they're doing. Getting ready for the next generation, improving the farm. And I get to go out there whenever I want. When I need my farm fix, like I was out there today. It's just great. See what they're doing and stuff like that. So I highly recommend that you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, for the second time, does anyone wish to speak for or against docket number 3? Go ahead.
Is there no time? No time?
Well, no, but try not to take any more time than you have to.
Sounds good. Okay, Tessa Schweitzer, 1272 Richland Avenue, St. Charles. First of all, this has nothing to do with this current thing. I'm just going to tell you that these agendas are too long and too many potentially contentious issues scheduled for one meeting. The county obviously needs more staff in the planning department or expand your 60-day deadline because there is no responsible vetting of any project at 12 midnight. So this is poor governance. Between 2002 and 2012, the number of Minnesota dairy farms has dropped by 27%. The number of cows has pretty much remained the same. When Winona County allows any feedlot to double in size up to the limit cap, we've just made it more difficult for a smaller farmer, one that might pasture its cows, to keep going another year. The end result is fewer farms, fewer folks on the land, hardly a preservation and promotion of agriculture. It's not promotion of local food systems and the stewardship of the land and its resources to retain the viability of agriculture for future generations. This is from your comp plan that some of you helped write. Okay, risking poisoning the wells by allowing expansion on karst with high sinkhole and nitrate probability isn't either. Protection of air, water, and encouragement for the small farmers starts here at the local level by hopefully following the lofty goals stated in your own comprehensive plan. You know, there is no pulling of CUPs or consequences for not following the rules. I think the public is under the impression that if people don't follow their stuff, or at least like 3 times, you know, strike, you're out. But that isn't so. You don't pull the CUPs. You're working on something right now. Because the repeated violations on the part of the previous owner, no business would you get away with that. Certainly not where I work. You know, so the county has a responsibility when you give out these CUPs to make sure that they are followed. So it starts here with you, the period. You know, when the Minnesota milk producers tell me and you that I want cheap milk, I'm like, I pay $4 to $5 a half gallon for Organic Valley and my Quick Trip along with my organic eggs. Yep, Quick Trip carries organics. Mike's Foods in St. Charles is carrying more and more organics, they tell me, because of consumer demand. I'm good with local food and milk from pastured cows myself, doesn't have to be organic. If cheap food is all folks want, then the U.S. would not be importing organic corn and soybeans. So, yeah, the American farmer isn't feeding the world. They're not even feeding the U.S. That's what Big Ag wants you to believe. That's what they tell these guys. You got to feed the world. Well, they're just driving their prices down. You know, how are milk prices going? What are corn prices going to be this fall? Not good. So basically, you're dealing here with this feedlot, and some of them are as big as 5,000, 10,000 units. It's a pyramid scheme with only the very big guys surviving at the end, and they're going to be the ones with the 5,000 to 10,000 units. So these guys aren't going to make it. That is the trend that's going on. And to stop it, you can't wait for the DNR, the Minnesota Pollution Permission Slip people to start protecting your land or your water or the smaller farmers. You have to start doing it here and now, following your own comp plan. And you know, if you want to see a healthier, more diversified agriculture, then you're going to hold these people to the fire or just deny the CUP, especially considering the land that it's on. Utica Township, some of those wells. Myself, I have a reverse osmosis system in town, so I don't have to worry about it. But I certainly hope this new young family has been told not to use water for formula or anything like that in their wells. So, and that's all I have. Thanks, this is great. I didn't have to cross too much out. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there, for the third and final time, is there anyone that wishes to speak for or against docket number 3? Go ahead.
My name is Francis Kronebusch. I live in Utica, Minnesota, and I'm the one that started Kronebusch Waste Haulers 14 years ago with my son Mark Kronebusch. And we did work for Bill Rollcamp, and Bill was on a lot of boards and that stuff, which I never was on. So he's a very intelligent man. And when I met the Parkers for the first time, I said, why did you want to come from Washington all the way out here? Well, we looked around, and he said to me, Winona County is the best place to have a dairy in the whole United States. This might be an uneducational statement, but when I was 5 or 6 years old, I was born and raised in Altura, Minnesota, back in the 50s. And this is maybe not right to say right after supper here now, but Dad used to leave 20 cows out of the barn. The cows would do number 1, number 2, bend and lift their tail up. Before I knew it, as a little boy, it made me sick to the stomach. Here comes a pig underneath the fence. Digs through and takes all kernels of corn, because we didn't have the equipment, like the big self-belt choppers that crack the kernels up and that. So here comes a chicken that Mom used to butcher. Now, here's my statement. Would you rather eat the meat from that chicken or that pig? Or would you, I was down here last spring in this same room supporting Holden Farms. You left them have their permit. The 2 buildings are going up right now. Would you rather eat the meat from that chicken or pig? Or would you rather eat it from Holden Farms where the pig got clean water, clean feed? I would rather eat it from them. To my standpoint, I was kind of against this large farming. No. Let's look at McDonald's. How many hamburgers does McDonald's sell? I don't have that figure in front of me. But do they make a half a cent or quarter of a cent profit? When you ask Parkers here why they wanted to go bigger with the MPI, it's the margin. You have to get bigger to get profit. That's all I can say. I highly support them. They're the best people. They're just as good as Rocamp or maybe better. I'm not Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Move to close the public hearing.
All right, Steve moves to close the public hearing on docket number 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Arlie seconds it. I guess there shouldn't be any discussion. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on docket number 3, PC 921-1703, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Public hearing is now closed. We're open for discussion before we do findings of fact. Chris?
Mr. Chair, I want to say that well, in general, it sounds like they'll be great, and this is really not in specific about the Byingtons. I take issue with finding of fact number 4. Staff has addressed exposing properties to adverse impacts, but I believe that they really haven't taken into consideration effects to surface and groundwater. And if you'll indulge me for just a few minutes. Okay. So my brothers-in-law took a trip last fall. They went to a game farm in South Dakota. And the farmer, who also had maybe 600 head of cattle, had to have his water piped in from a neighboring state from several hundred miles away because the groundwater where he lived, which was near Eureka, South Dakota, was so contaminated that he couldn't feed his livestock. So just this summer, the Minnesota Department of Ag, and here's one for you, and I'm looking at page 4 of the first document and page 2 of the second document. There's 2 of them there. Did testing of a number of townships here in Minnesota. They tested Utica Township. And unfortunately, over 40% of the wells there are testing above the allowed level of nitrates. So we already have groundwater contamination. And we've talked about this before. This is not about your performance. I think that we're just not doing enough. And our regulation of nutrients in agriculture is just not sufficient to protect our groundwater quality. So this particular farm has a high sinkhole probability. It's located in an area with high nitrate probability, and so the rest of the findings of fact I'm fine with, but I can't go along with number 4.
Sherry? I'm
Aye.
sorry.
This is a concern that I share as well. I think it was 46.8% of the wells in Utica Township were above the level for nitrates. Also, I think the Byington, I think your property is bordered or touches on Rush Creek. Did I read that in here?
You mean the Rush Creek watershed?
Yeah, well, and that is an impaired waterway in the most recent map from the MPCA. So I too have very serious concerns about water. And while I recognize it isn't one of the criteria that we address in the findings of fact, I believe that it should be, because we, this board, as well as the county commissioners, have a responsibility that people should continue to have clean drinking water. All of us. I read through, quite carefully, the petition as submitted and was concerned about the number of violations in the past. I recognize that the property has changed hands, and Emily did a good job of addressing the 3 violations since the property changed hands. And I will say I feel somewhat reassured that changes have been made. I thought the note that there haven't been odor complaints since you came was really good, because certainly there were a lot of them in the past. I do find it curious, or wonder how it can be accomplished, that since some of the problems in the past had to do with spills and overflow of the pit, that you can double the number of animals and not continue, but not increase the infrastructure to deal with the manure. I recognize, I have heard that you're doing some different practices. So I feel a little better than I did initially, but I am still I am concerned yet about the doubling of the animals. I think that's it.
Okay, anyone else?
I have a question.
Terry.
So there was a CUP.
Now, is this for Emily or?
It's for Emily.
Okay.
There was a CUP before,
There is currently a conditional use permit.
and we are simply
Modifying
that.
CUP. So it'll be the same number. The conditions included in the staff report will replace the conditions that are existing in there now.
That was my question. Rather than adding to the conditions, you are replacing them.
Correct.
So you will end up with significantly fewer.
Correct.
Conditions than the former. So what is your rationale for writing the conditions the way you did?
My conditions are, several of them encompass several requirements. The generic condition that says the feedlot operation will operate in accordance to local, state, and federal laws. I mean, that encompasses a lot of requirements, so I don't have to be specific with requirements. If they're non-compliant with any regulation, whether it's our county ordinance or with state law, they're non-compliant as well with their conditional use permit. So that's why I like to use that general condition throughout several feedlot CUPs. And then also I felt that I could consolidate some other conditions that were listed in that existing CUP, like the manure storage management conditions, instead of having them outlined separately, to summarize them up into that odor management plan.
Okay, thank you. I guess my tendency would be, if we have a feedlot on which we've experienced a number of violations in the past, my tendency would be to add conditions rather than reduce them. And I'm not sure that getting more general, when we know we've had very specific violations, it is helpful to protect the water, protect the air, et cetera. So I guess that's...
But those violations were prior to the new owners.
Not all of them. I mean, one was there is one that is outstanding, actually.
Yep, the soil phosphorus testing.
Right.
So that's a water quality, I mean, that's even existing violation.
So that can be added in there, couldn't it? With that condition?
It's already in there, isn't it?
It essentially is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it kind of essentially is, yes. But it's a very general condition. And that is, must abide by all local, state, and federal. And I find that less than pertinent when we've seen several violations. And I'm not saying, when I say several violations, I'm not certain whether they are, I'm not saying they're the fault of the owner-operator. It may be a site issue, in which case you should be specific then, because it's a site issue with manure overflows, whatever, phosphate, whatever we have. But there is a portion of a stream that does run through the parcel, and Utica Township is very high, the water is very high in nitrates. So I think it's important in these cases to protect the water, to protect, the health, safety, and welfare of citizens, that we get pretty specific and say this condition, this condition, this condition. Now, you mentioned that you took away the 8-inch crust requirement, and rather than doing that, you required something different, which would allow for a perhaps more effective way to control odors, right? And I get that. That makes sense to me. But when we've had so many violations, I think it's in our best interests as a county to be specific and very specifically protect our water, protect our air, and
Duly noted. I do want to make just some more information too. This isn't the only permit that this feedlot operation is going to be receiving for this proposal. Following the decision of their CUP, if it does get approved, they're also going to be required to apply for a feedlot permit. So that would be a permit application that I review and approve. And before I'm able to legally approve that permit, they're going to need to have a completed manure management plan. So at that point, before their application is deemed complete, they will need to have those updated soil phosphorus tests. In addition, that feedlot permit can have more strict standards that county staff can add to it. So there are other avenues to have conditions to the operation.
Emily, could you explain to the people what is entailed if the phosphate is not in compliance? What will be done to get it to where they needs to be?
Sure. So if you take a look in the manure management plan, you'll notice there's a page that is called the soil or the 6-year phosphorus management plan. So basically what we do, it's like balancing your checkbook. You outline the crops that you are planning on having in a 6-year rotation. You describe the typical rate of manure that you're planning to apply, commercial fertilizer that has phosphorus in it that you will apply. And you basically make sure you're not going to put more on the ground than the plants that are growing can uptake. So always want to make sure that you have more phosphorus being uptaken than you're putting on so that you don't build up those soil phosphorus levels. In certain situations where we have an excess of soil phosphorus, we can issue a feedlot interim permit. So that's a specific permit that I issue to help address pollution hazards. And in that permit then, I have a specific condition that says you may not apply manure on fields with X level of phosphorus. It's typically 75 parts per million Bray, which is just a standard for soil phosphorus. And so the goal then is to manage that soil phosphorus until they can show that those are back into acceptable levels.
And do you do the same with nitrates?
We do not have any official soil nitrate testing requirements in state language yet.
I do got a question. Emma, do you know, okay, the Utica Township is known for high nitrates. How many years back has it been high? Is there any way of knowing? I mean, has it been that way, high in nitrates for 20 years?
That's a good question.
No baseline.
You don't know?
No, I said there's no baseline.
No, I know, I'm just.
Actually, I have looked at reports.
It'd be interesting to know, but.
I have looked at reports that were maybe 10 years old, and they didn't reflect the kind of data that this particular report shows.
Yeah.
My understanding is that the aquifer, that when wells go deeper, you can find clean water. My concern is I do not want Winona County to end up like that place in South Dakota. The deeper you go and the more pollution that you have, I mean, it frightens me.
No,
Done.
it's the other way around. The deeper the go, the less pollution. you
Right,
have.
that's right, but you pull it down.
And the more expensive it is.
I'm going to support this petition. In my view, it does everything that our comp plan hopes for. It serves to preserve agriculture in Winona County. It creates jobs, tax base. It's putting land into grassland rather than row crops, supporting a family and maybe future generations. It's golden in terms of our comp plan as I see it. So I'll be supporting it.
Okay,
I have another question, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Kelly.
I believe that you were at the water presentation. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the presentation. Can you help me out here? Kay?
county commissioners had?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Sheila Harm spoke,
Thank you.
that one.
Okay.
I wasn't at that meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, one way to measure nitrates is to use lysimeters, and they're buried at just below the roots. And so you know if nitrates get to that point, get to the lysimeter, that the plants aren't using them, so there's too much there. I guess that would be one way to at least begin to be able to solve, or at least make the problem of nitrates in places like Utica Township not be so severe. And I guess I would recommend that condition, that would be an appropriate condition for any large feedlot. So, you know, and that's what I mean by being more specific than being general. There is no law that requires you use lysimeters, but we know we have a problem with nitrates in Utica Township. So why should we not do something about it? There is no reason we shouldn't. We could put a condition on this to use lysimeters.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
If dairy operations in Winona County are going to survive, they have to grow. To not let them grow is to defeat dairy operations in Winona County. It's a matter of scale. Maybe there's a pyramid, but if we're going to compete in the pyramid, we got to be there competing. The issue of the nitrates, if there's something needed on a countywide basis, go for it, get it done. But don't discriminate against this petition by imposing a condition on this one that won't be imposed on anything else. If we fail to act on this favorably, it's a statement against agriculture throughout the county.
I agree with you, Don. I mean, yes, none of us want to drink manure. And you're right. Why should we pick on that one when everyone else is going to do it? I agree with you.
Mr. Chair?
Chris.
This particular farm and these petitioners are following the law. They're following the zoning regulations. And so ultimately, you're absolutely right. I don't find that I can vote against this petition, but it doesn't change any of the things that I've said. And I think that my colleague is making really an argument that's somewhat inaccurate. When I was up north, there was a lot of contention around Ely about mining. And so I would see signs in people's yards that said, we support mining because mining supports us. But then I saw signs where people said, we support clean water
because clean water supports us.
So there are two sides to the issue, but it isn't just about economics, because none of us can survive economically if we don't have water to drink. So, I mean, I feel like the county really does, and the state does, really need to address these issues. Nitrate contamination is serious. But you're absolutely right, it isn't right to pick on this specific farming operation. But I cannot go along with condition 4.
Donnie?
We heard testimony tonight that increasing the site of his herd isn't going to increase his water usage. And on the issue of water usage, are we to shut down agriculture across the county to avoid water usage? There is clean water deeper, yes. The near surface water is high in nitrate levels. Well, deal with it.
Mr. Chair, I guess the issue is not water usage. The issue is water quality. And we already have impaired water in Utica Township. I would also say that just because something isn't breaking the law or isn't violating Winona County zoning law is not a sufficient reason to approve it. I would say that given particular unique characteristics of a site should allow you, that's what conditions are for. You put a condition because of a unique circumstance at the site. Since this site is in Utica Township, I would say that it would be prudent in the interest of protecting water quality to add conditions specifically with regard to measuring nitrates. And as long as we're measuring them, and as long as we know that they are not sending additional nitrates into the groundwater, then I would be okay with approving it. As long as we're doing something to protect the water in an area where the water is already impaired, I could consider it, but not without that.
Well, then we almost have to do it, all the farms in Utica Township.
I would,
In
Winona County as well, yeah.
you know, what we do have to do is.
And
if
I don't
we've
see a
got-
problem with that. I'd like
Yeah.
to see that, and we all would.
If we.
But that's
every
not
time-
the
excuse
issue
me.
here tonight.
Yeah.
No.
You know, I would not disagree with you that anytime we have a CUP for a feedlot in Utica Township or any other township where we have impaired water because of nitrates, we should be doing that.
Can we go to findings of fact here and,
I'm okay with that.
I wanted to have a chance to speak too.
all right, I guess you haven't
I've
spoken.
been waiting for everyone.
All right.
You know, first of all, from what I can tell, the applicants have been completely cooperative. If there's been a violation, they've been completely willing to work with the problem and do the right thing. There, you know, again, state, federal, county regulations. Our feedlot officer has combed through those, done her due diligence, making sure that everything with this application is in line with what needs to be done. For your concerns with it, number 4, I mean, that's, and to put additional testing on this particular farm, I mean, that's clearly singling one citizen out and treating them differently than the population as a whole, and that's just, if that needs to be addressed, it should be addressed either, we've talked about before, in the comp plan, or an amendment to the zoning ordinance, however you want to do that, but to just, you know, start, we need to be fair with business in our county. And I have visited this particular site. It's a very well-run operation. The former owner sits currently on the Soil and Water SWCD in Lewiston. Yeah, everything Don said, great for the economy, great for providing valuable services to the community. And there is absolutely no evidence that this particular farm is polluting our groundwater in any way. Should we do everything we can? that's what all the state, federal, and county requirements are for, and we're implementing every one of them. I feel good about supporting this, and I feel good about supporting it just as it's presented.
Mr. Chair, I take issue with being accused of singling out a citizen. Please refrain from doing that in the future. My issue has to do with the site, and we have a nitrate problem in Utica County, in Utica Township. It needs to be addressed. And if we don't begin addressing it, it's going to get worse. It's not singling out a citizen. It is singling out an issue we have in Winona County with our water quality. Thank
Mr.
you,
Chair.
Mr. Chair.
You know, it's
We're
getting
dragging out
later.
the meeting for-
Can we go on to findings of fact and
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay.
everybody that hasn't spoken is now spoken, and let's go on, let's proceed.
Well, we don't need to go through each and every one of them, she said.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve it with the findings of facts and the conditions as presented.
No.
Second.
No.
Except for.
Someone has already expressed an interest in
You don't have to
in not
amend
doing
So
that.
now there's a motion.
Council, whatever.
I can explain it. There's two ways that you can go about this. There is a motion with a second on the floor that needs to be heard. If there was going to be an amendment to number 4, it should have been done in the form of a motion. So I would move to approve criteria number 4 to say whatever.
Can we vote? There's a motion and a second right now. Can we vote on that?
Correct. So there's a
And if it
motion,
doesn't make it, then we'll go back and address number 4?
There can be the discussion. At this point, there can also be a motion to amend
Amend,
the motion
right.
to address condition number 4. So those are the two ways that changing the language can be handled. Either during the initial discussion, you can change the findings, or you can do it this way where you've got it all in front of you with a motion and then amend it.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, so I am intending to vote in support of this particular petition as a whole, but I would like the record to reflect that I have a disagreement with that particular finding of fact. So I would, whatever's the most expedient way of making that clear.
Well, I don't
That's
know
all
the answer to
yeah,
that.
That's all I want to do.
Donnie.
I'll speak against the amendment if.
No, there is no amendment
Well, I
yet.
didn't amend it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll speak in support of the motion.
And do you have the motions first and second names? Donnie did, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Steve second.
Okay.
And my colleague here, in reference to number 4, my colleague had alluded to the impairment of, is it Rush Creek? I forget.
Pine Creek, isn't
No,
it?
it's Rush Creek.
I did not.
Okay,
It's
okay,
Rush Creek. Cherie did.
Sheridan.
okay.
Okay.
The MPC
One of my
listed as
colleagues.
impaired
Okay.
waters.
Can you tell us how it was deemed to be impaired? Was it turbidity, for instance?
I actually don't know that.
Okay.
I looked
Thank
up
you.
all the townships in the county
Thank you.
somewhat recently, and it was listed as impaired waters.
Okay. Turbidity is oftentimes the sole criteria for something being listed as impaired in Winona
understand
County, and they're going to go with more grassland. So that'll improve the turbidity aspect.
Since we don't know,
Right, and we don't know. More broadly on number 4, keywords are significant adverse impacts. I don't see this operation as creating significant adverse impacts. So I speak for the motion as it stands with all of the findings of fact as presented.
Is there any other discussion?
I move to amend the findings of fact. I'm sorry, the motion was to what? Approve with all the findings of fact?
Approve all of the findings of fact, as
Okay.
stated.
Approve with all the findings of fact. I move to amend to say that the proposed feedlot will not avoid exposing adjacent properties and natural features. Number 4, okay, will not, because there is a potential for polluting water. I would also add a condition that lysimeters be used at all manure application sites to measure whether or not nitrates have the potential for reaching groundwater.
Okay, is there a second to this
This is
amendment?
a single amendment, I take.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second to this amendment?
I'd second that.
All right.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
As the proposer of the motion, I don't accept the amendment. That's
No,
not, that's not the moment.
We have to vote on it.
We have to vote on
We
it.
can accept it as a friendly amendment, but we can't turn it down. We have to vote on it.
It becomes not the motion that I put forward.
No.
Moved and seconded, and now there's a.
We need to vote the amendment down if that's where we want to go.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Now, we're all clear. I know I can't recite Kelly's amendment. Is there anybody that needs clarification on what the amendment is?
I don't.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment about findings of fact number 4, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, I believe that the amendment fails. Hearing no argument, then we will go back to the original findings of fact motion that states that we approve, what is there, 9 of them? 8 of them, with the conditions as listed 1 through 4.
All right, so I would like to try and amend number 4 only to say that the feedlot will have the potential to cause groundwater contamination, but just for,
I'll second that.
She seconds that. Donnie?
or to at least somehow separate it so it can have a split vote. That's really what I'm looking for.
In that, the key words there are significant adverse impacts. I oppose the amendment.
Okay.
It seems like we shouldn't be able to re-vote on the same.
Amendment has been made and seconded.
Do we have
Assistant
to,
County Attorney,
This is the same
Hers
condition.
was a much broader amendment.
please listen to
This
the,
narrows it down.
A motion has been made and seconded, discussion and vote.
So,
All right.
And can we do this with a show of
Can I ask a
hands?
question, sir?
No, she had a motion and second on her amendment.
There's a motion and second to amend to.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yeah.
Assistant County Attorney.
Go ahead.
All right, is it possible to separate item 4 out from the rest? Can I move to do this?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, by.
That's
by
essentially-
making
I
a
would
motion
simply,
to amend
I
it-
would like the record to reflect a split vote on number 4, on finding of fact number 4.
I think that the motions to amend and the either approvals or failures of that does reflect that because all of those motions are included in the record.
Okay, thank you very much.
So,
Show of hands.
all right, now, there's no more discussion on, and yours is an amendment then, right?
It's an amendment, yes.
Just to split it out?
No,
No.
no. It's an amendment to the motion to approve
All right.
the whole thing.
Everybody understands? That's going to vote at least.
So if you vote in favor, you're voting to
Change 4.
change 4 to state what?
Will-
Precisely.
will not
Will
avoid.
not.
Not avoid, yeah.
All right. Now, everybody's in agreement as to what we're voting on here.
Was there a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Three, I think.
Agreed.
Kelly.
Or Kelly.
Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly did this time. I'm looking both ways and not comprehending. All right. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion, say aye. Or show of hands.
Show of hands, okay.
All right, we got 5. All those opposed, show of hands. We got 3. So this amendment passes. Now, we can have further discussion on the original motion with this amendment. Hearing or seeing nobody responding. All those in favor of the findings of fact motion on docket number 3, say aye.
As amended.
As amended, excuse me.
Are you,
This is approval of the.
this is the approval?
Of the
Okay.
motion
thank you.
for
I didn't hear
findings
that.
of fact.
I didn't hear that. Thank you.
Point of clarification, this includes conditions as well?
Yes, it does include conditions as well.
Thank you.
It is to recommend approval of the findings of fact now as amended and the conditional use permit with the attached conditions.
That's not a separate motion.
It's all one motion because it's all one document.
No, we all understand what we're doing here. Maybe I don't, but I don't get to vote anyway unless there's a tie, so, okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, I don't have to ask for those not in favor because it passes.
Well, you should do it because it should be on the record.
Oh, okay, this,
And they have the right to vote.
this, all of those not in favor, raise your hand. We got one, okay? Now, so then we're done with this issue? Okay, so thank you for attending. I hope we didn't bore you. This will go before the Winona County Board of Commissioners, and good luck. Now, do we go back to docket number 1, Eric?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Might have to have a discussion whether we want to.
All right. Let's go to docket number 4, and while we're having staff, well, wait a minute. Let's have a short intermission because I have to go to the bathroom.
Thank you, sir.
with staff report on docket number 4. Yeah, Lou. Hit her.
All right. So we have another petition for a community solar array. It's the same company as we heard in the spring. And the site is actually just a few hundred feet to the north on neighboring property. So it's very close proximity, same area. Pretty similar setup. You'll be familiar with most of the aspects of the petition. Again, co-located, two separate projects. Oh, the first one here is Fast Sun LLC, and the petitioners, George and Kimberly Carr, are the property owners. It's a 6-acre, 1 megawatt project. So there were some questions about capacity of the line, and we got some information from the petitioners. Apparently, Xcel's line along this area, you can ask him more about this later if you still have questions, but apparently this line has a capacity of 8 megawatts for renewables that are not a consistent source of energy. So, so far we've approved 2. This would be another 2. So essentially, from what they can tell, we're about halfway to the capacity for renewables along this line for Xcel. And I know that was a question that came up, so I wanted to address it, just so you know where you're at, kind of, keeping track of the ability to accept the power onto the grid in this area. The site itself, for the Fast Sun site, which is the further west site here, you can see from the topo lines, it's a little bit flatter. They spread out a little bit here. But in this area, the steepest slopes within that area are around 14% slopes. The green on the map here is bluff, so you can see that it's located outside of the bluff setback in the area. Brown line is the access road. We come in that way and access in the middle.
Meets a 100-foot setback.
Right, the green is including the 100-foot setback.
So the yellow dotted line is a 100-foot setback from the green?
It's set back an additional amount from the defined bluff. So the edge of the green includes the 100-foot setback. And then the solar array is located outside of that setback. Does that make sense?
So the distance of those topo lines is saying that it's less than 18%?
14% on the steepest portions that would be in like this area. So it's significantly flatter up in this location up here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where the toe of the bluff, top of the bluff is where our setbacks are from, right?
Right.
So the green is extending 100 feet past the top of the bluff.
Right. So the top of the bluff, if you were to measure back 100 feet, it would be somewhere down in here.
That's,
those lines look too close together to not be.
well, no, that's why there's the wide division between the contour lines. It's not so steep there.
Right. I mean, these are 10-foot contour lines too. If you had 2-foot contour lines, they'd be tighter. It'd look steeper. Yeah, these are 10-foot contour lines. And at this scale, I mean, 100 feet is a very short distance. So yeah. We looked into it, and it was outside of that area. It's 1,300 feet from Apple Blossom Drive to this location, so it is set back a ways from the road. The contours up here on the hill, this is actually higher than the road, so the road, the contours of the land actually block the view of this from the north and through here.
Where's the Mississippi River bluff setback line?
The Mississippi River bluff would probably encompass this area.
A mile from the center line of 61.
Right. So, I don't know.
So if it were,
Needs to be on there.
It might be off the map out here, but.
if this were this is a structure on the bluff, and that's what we ran into with the spelts, making them push it, the Jim Spelts one, pushing it way back. But if this were a house, this would be the same criteria, right? Structure on the bluff.
Right. Yep.
And it'd have to be a mile. It'd have to be a mile from Mississippi.
Right.
No,
And
center line
that
of
dotted
61.
line is the same line you'd be using if someone wanted to put a house, they could put it right up to that dotted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the Mississippi River bluff overlay to see where that lays across in relation to this. I don't have it handy right now.
Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah.
Not the Mississippi, I believe, but the center line of 61.
Yeah,
That's
that-
where it's measured from.
I can't be. Is that Apple Blossom Drive?
Yeah.
I can't be a mile from.
Some portions are, some portions aren't.
I don't think we can act on it until we see it. So.
We can probably get you that information if you'd like. Blake, you want to pull that?
He's going to get it.
Thank you. So we'll continue. And we'll come back.
Can you go back to that one, Lou?
Sure.
Did you find out from the Monona County Highway Department, either you or Kay, about additional juniper shrubbery up there by the XL?
Yep, we'll get there. There's a couple slides away.
Oh, okay. I just saw that was in that slide, so.
Right.
Okay.
I've got a slide here with soils. Soils consist of silt loams throughout the site. Currently, the land's in corn and bean rotation. There's also quite a bit of hay on the site as well.
So what's the actual land classification? What category is it?
These slopes here are class 1 to 3s.
The blue one.
The blue, yeah. These are the soils that are regulated, I guess, through our ordinance, and have those requirements for dwellings. So 1, 2, and 3s in this area.
This is treated. These are structures, right? I mean, this is
a structure, yes.
That's how we're treating it, isn't it?
Yep.
Would we treat it different than we treated if it was a house going there?
Yes, we would.
House also.
Because this is really just for your information, because I know it's an issue. Our ordinance only requires prime soils for dwellings. It's specifically for dwellings that requirement is written for. It doesn't apply to any other kind of structure. Just new dwellings.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Donnie.
Packet page 131 has a broader map with a scale in terms of miles. And based upon this, it pairs it within a mile of 61. Page 131.
So that mean it requires variance?
No, I don't think so. The Mississippi River Bluff requires a conditional use permits for all structures on 12 to 18% slope. In addition to, normally it would be 18 to 25% slope would require a conditional use permit. The Mississippi River Bluff would require a conditional use permit for 12 to 18% slopes for structures. It would also require a CUP for new. Oh, you're testing my my memory. A CUP for new dwellings within 300 feet of the top of the bluff. So there's a setback, additional requirement for within a certain distance of the top of the bluff setback.
So would that cover that entire blue area then? If you come 300 feet in on each side?
I mean, if this was the Mississippi River Bluffs in this area, then yes, it would, this would be within that 300 feet. It would also be on over 12% slopes, so it would require a CUP for that as well, I believe. Do you have the ordinance out, Eric? Am I accurate in that?
Yeah, for MRB, proposed building activities, including structures and driveways that occur within slopes between 12 and 18% shall be allowed by conditional use permit. Proposed development within 300 feet of the top of lot is required.
Yeah, good question. It is within that area.
Just to be clear,
Mississippi River Bluff.
I'm not opposed to development that can't be seen from Highway 61. But when I raised that issue, when the comp plan was being developed, I couldn't get any attention or attraction to that. If something's not visible from 61, which is the intent of the Mississippi River Bluffs corridor protections, it should be exempt from this kind of stuff. And when we review the comp plan, we need to take up that issue.
I think that could be, I mean, I don't know that you need to change the comp plan in order to change an ordinance.
Somewhere we need to change that.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. This is within the Mississippi River Bluffs, it looks like. So Erica, based on the ordinance, for that, how would that apply to the site, Mississippi River Bluffs?
Eric, what page of the ordinance are you on?
244.
We didn't get the ordinance.
Where it starts at 245. That's where the additional standards for CUP. There are 8 criteria that could have bearing into it. One is proposed developments shall be aligned and sited to fit the natural topography, take advantage of existing vegetation, land form screen. Number 2, proposed development shall use the most minimal amount of grading or other modifications of landforms, vegetative cover, and natural features. 3, exterior lighting located on the parcel shall not exceed a total overall height of 8 feet and shall be directed toward the ground. 4, exterior color of proposed structures, including roofs, shall be earth tone color. 5, exterior material of proposed structures shall be non-reflective. 6, to promote structural design which fits existing site conditions, excessive land disturbance, or the creation of structural building envelopes shall be avoided. 7, proposed development on a total building height of no more than 35 feet. 8, U-shed analysis shall be employed as a valuation tool to be considered as part of the decision-making process. Those are additional standards that sometimes get brought into a CUP request.
Did you check if it's digitally within a mile? Or?
It is. It's, yep. Within the mapped area.
Is that a requirement? The earth tone color? I mean, obviously, these aren't going to be earth tone colored.
No, they wouldn't be. I think that's, I mean, those standards would be, the intent of those standards were to be for.
I asked the county board to address this and separate this. I don't feel solar applications should be falling into the same. But that's why we had problems with the spelts, and he had to use prime farmland to stay away from the steeper topography.
I move that we table this until there's further research.
Is there a second to this motion?
Do we get into a 60-day problem at all with this, or?
No, we'll have to deal with it.
Well, we have a motion and a second. What do we do now, council?
Discussion.
All right. Any discussion?
Are the petitioners
I'd like to understand how this impacts the 60-day rule. We are required to act.
The 60-day rule can be extended. It's reason enough to extend the 60-day rule. And we'll work with the petitioners to, if we need to, beyond that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would you permit me to speak briefly?
Yes. I'm as confused as anybody, so you can straighten it out.
Mr. Chairman and Planning Commission members. So if we're being respectful of the comp plan and the setback from 61, what would our goals and objectives be for any project? I think that could be a subject of discussion. I just wanted to point out by jumping ahead 2 slides, and thank you, Lou, for permitting me to do that in your presentation, and I'll sit back down briefly, or shortly rather. I think that this project could be very well screened from apple blossom, from an existing business, and from existing residents by extending some shade trees in a draw along a creek area, and from extending native Virginiana junipers along apple blossom, and some creative landscaping. Softscape costs such as landscaping compared to a large hardscape structure, whether it's solar panels or large structures of another type, vastly different in cost. And it's something that could help mitigate the kind of views that might want to be protected within this mile of the Mississippi River. So I just present that for all of your consideration, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're in discussion on the motion to table. Chris?
Yeah. So the items that staff person Eric Johnson read off are not requirements. Those are optional issues to consider. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
They are additional standards for conditional use permits that are required under those conditions. Some of them read as though they have flexibility. Some are strict, in fact, that they call out colors. I guess it would be ask for view shed analysis in some areas where there could be concerns. The image that Kay put up there shows, I think, 15 vantage points coming from the scenic drive, County Road 1, where the areas of most concern.
Is this visible from 61?
No.
Okay.
That's my point.
61 is off this direction, and this is up over the side, up over the top and down the other side, actually.
Yeah.
Is there any chance of glare coming off of these to either one of these roads, the drivers?
I don't believe that the glare is an issue with these, with panels. It is set back off the road quite a bit, and the screening would be along. The only place that you can really see is you're going north. You'd be looking out this way, and you're looking through this draw and through these trees to see the panels behind. So it is blocked, like I said before, by the landform, the lay of the land in this area. There's screening here, and there's screening. All this screening, this woods in here also blocks and softens the view. That being said, I mean, each of these is 6 acres for a total of 12 acres of solar panels that are located, 800 feet off of, starting 800 feet off of the road. So yeah, you're going to see them. It's a matter of, how obtrusive are they?
I think we have a motion that's been made and seconded on tabling this. Let's keep the discussion pertinent to the motion.
Yeah. So why are we tabling? Please explain.
Because the MRB standards require setback issues, dimensions that are different than proposed here.
I think what they would require is additional conditional use permits. Isn't that correct, Eric?
Additional reference to that.
Reference to that. I mean, so we would be here considering the same thing anyways. We should have referenced probably 2 additional sections.
So my question with respect to the tabling is, the petitioner, how does this affect them if we put this off a month and allow you to put the right findings of fact and the right conditions in? I mean, where's the petitioner at with this?
Right. Go ahead. would you come up and address that?
And if we could tack on there, whatever these additional conditions are, if it's additional screening as.
Well, let's listen to him first.
Mark Zweig, Yuma Lane, 72101, Yuma Lane North. The additional time does, affect the project. There's a lot of things in motion right now, with the project, including the interconnection cost. Interconnection studies are coming back. We recently got one for the site just south of there, and that's a considerable development spend. So we've come to a development spend outflow of cash. So it does affect having more time for tabling. So.
Okay.
But are you speaking on behalf of the landowner, or you're the petitioner?
I'm the petitioner, so on behalf of the project.
But you don't own the land?
No. I do not own the land.
Would it have a negative financial impact on the landowner?
I can't speak for that, no.
Okay. But it would have a negative financial impact on the project?
Yes.
Okay.
Donnie.
Speaking for my motion to table, my understanding is they have to come back with something on the MRB anyhow. So I don't think it's delaying anything to table this until we hear about that.
And
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Kelly.
I guess I'd like to read from the zoning ordinance, section 11.6.3, Mississippi River Bluffs. And the purpose is, this section is established to protect and enhance the intrinsic natural and scenic qualities of the bluffs along the Mississippi River. So we are talking about the scenic nature. We've all asked whether this would affect, the scenic qualities of the bluffs. And the answer has been no. You can grow certain kinds of trees along there and you will block the view of these things. So I really question the wisdom of tabling this, especially when it's going to have a negative financial impact on someone who could have a very positive economic development effect on our county. This is something that is going on in our county that's a positive economic development activity. So I would be against tabling this.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Don.
I'm glad that my colleague Kelly finally agrees with me on something, and that something that's outside of the highway within the mile should not be affected by these conditions. Maybe you'll join me in supporting the change of the ordinance in the future. As it stands, the ordinance is what it is, and we need to respect that.
Council?
As Mr. Oram just pointed out to me, if there is an additional conditional use permit that is needed, we do have to provide adequate notice. Those issues can't be addressed tonight.
Okay.
So something would have to be heard in the future, on a future agenda. Okay.
But you can't state specifically that is needed now?
It looks to us that there's 2 more notices that would need to be made for this petition because of the Mississippi River Bluffs designation.
So then, actually tabling it is a moot point?
Sir,
No.
sir, it sounds like that's what staff would like.
It's the only thing that we can do, right?
Right.
Okay,
You can technically act on this petition, but it would be knowing that there would need to be an additional conditional use permit.
so we'd have to put that in as a condition?
No, there would have to be a separate permit to be addressed.
It's going to come before us again, is what you're saying,
Okay,
right?
does everybody understand what we're talking about now on the planning commission?
I think so, but I have a question.
Okay.
So this could not be addressed by adding a condition in this particular conditional use permit. Is that what you're saying?
Legal technicality.
Okay.
Does this firm understand what we just said, or?
Yes, I do understand. I mean, we work really hard to accommodate the sensitivities on Apple Blossom Trail by situating the arrays where they are.
Yeah, I understand.
I worked hard with the tenant farmer, understanding where his highest yields are, and made sure that we accommodate that. And we also utilized a licensed landscape architect to help us figure out what's the best way to screen this site. So we did do quite a bit of work on this already.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit of.
Okay, Steve.
A little bit of background. This is an unintended consequence of the prohibition of building a house on the bluff. That's what this, that's what this was designed to prohibit, was if we don't, people who don't want to look at a house on the bluff, but those same people don't mind looking at these structures on the bluff. So, I mean, the idea is fairness, and I've asked our county board specifically to separate the issues. I don't feel like this solar application should be denied because someone else doesn't like to look at a house on the bluff, but right now, the way it reads, a structure on the bluff is a structure on the bluff, and if it's within a mile of the Mississippi River, our board hasn't been willing to look at the issue.
I think the issue is really an oversight by staff, not catching the fact that it was in the MRB. I apologize for that. I didn't catch it. I didn't know it was within that overlay. That being said, I mean, otherwise, it really wouldn't have been that big of an issue to have it in that. I mean, you can have the policy discussion, but it's, I mean, this issue is really based on a lack of noticing properly. So it's not a, the not having it in the MRB or in the MRB or not in the MRB. It's really a matter of.
The Spells application was problematic because of the bluff setbacks. This application
Mr. Chair,
is problematic.
in the interest of time, can we move on to what we need to do?
No, you're right. That one wasn't in the MRB though.
Yeah, but it was a bluff setback issue.
That's really what it's about.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to table this. Is there any more discussion? And I hope not, so that we can vote on this motion. Hearing none. All in favor of tabling docket number 4, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It has been tabled, or the motion to table has been passed. Now, do we have to make a motion for 5 too? Yes. Okay, do I hear a motion to table number 5?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, Donnie moved and Chris seconded it. Now, do we have to go through this whole discussion again? Good. All those in favor of tabling docket number 5, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This motion to table number 5 has also passed. I'm sorry about the inconvenience, but there's nothing we can do, I guess, at this point.
Do we need to do something for the 60-day?
Staff will take care of that. Okay, now Eric, do we go back to 1 or do we go to 6? Okay. I got to turn the page then.
6 or 7? 6?
6.
All right, Eric, are you staff for this one?
I am.
All right, go ahead.
With item number 6, they are specifically asking for 2 considerations, 2 conditional use permits, different sections of the ordinance. So we need 2 motions and 2 separate actions. The first part of this is to allow an ag-orientated business, which would be custom machining, metal fabrication, implement repair, and incidental things that go along with that, welding, whatnot. The second part of this is that in consideration of the 2.93 acres, the applicant also wishes to construct a small home on that property.
Eric, didn't we give them a conditional use permit for the small business before?
We did. There was a conditional use permit issued, I believe in 2014, or maybe even earlier. And in that regard, that original conditional use permit involved the entire parcel at one time. The applicant had the house that was on that property. As pointed out in the staff report in 2015, that property was divided. The house was sold separate, and the outbuildings were kept on the remnant parcel. In 2015, the applicant did initiate the conditional use permit to allow the ag-orientated business portion of it. He, at that time, wished to pursue activity within the two existing larger outbuildings. That was tabled due to personal circumstances involving proceedings as far as the property goes. That has been resolved, so the applicant is now pursuing to continue with that request. The map is pretty busy as far as the aerial, but I just wanted to highlight maybe some of the points that are in motion with this. There's currently a new address that has been assigned, but the driveway has not been completed. There's a portion that is still unbuilt, about 50 feet off of the county road. The applicant does have a county highway driveway access permit that is pending. Is pending until action is taken on the Planning Commission County Board on these requests. My understanding is that it is not the requirements based on the stipulations. The home occupation would be out of the larger building that's on the property. There's also a smaller one for cold storage. There's a number of smaller sheds and shelters and stock material, and she indicates that most of that material would be removed upon receiving this conditional use permit. As pointed out, the closest distance to the neighbor to the west is in this distance. So the staff report makes reference to a critical area that could be potentially subject to conditions as far as screening or hedgerows in this southwest corner. The applicant has indicated that once this is cleaned up, there is a future site for a potential small house, a 2-bedroom house. The applicant can draw the size, either 24 by 32 or something to that nature. And we have a couple of alternative sites and realize that probably with a small mound system to accommodate that, that would have to be identified within that area. The driveway would be along a berm area that exists on the property, but there is a small area here. There is water features, there is springs, and there is water surface areas, there is some wetlands, so it makes reference to making sure that wetlands are not impacted by filling or placement of material in that area. The applicant has, well, here's some pictures. This was from over a year ago. April 2016, when I visited the site with Darrell Buck from the Soil and Water. We were looking at the potential access driveway that was there and the potential area from the road to where this is standing around the shoulder of the road looking at the greater ditch where there was left this low-lying area, so there is lateral movement along the road in that area, and that's where the culvert placement would have to be required in order for the applicant to finish that driveway. The one diagram shows his specifications as far as culvert, the driveway, the width, the dimensions that would be placed for the highway right of County Road 25. This is in regards to Planning Commission Agenda Item 92117, number 6, whereas the petitioner, Martin Rank, seeks 2 conditional use permits to, 1, allow an agricultural oriented business, and secondly, to allow a new dwelling on a parcel less than 40 acres in size. We're currently where the buildings are. In late 2015, the parcel was divided with these existing outbuildings off with 2.93 acres of land. from this direction, the other acreage, roughly about half, slightly under 3 acres, more to kind of the northeast of the parcel. I can get that on the way out, was divided over in that area. At this point, the applicant has indicated that he would like to work on machinery and equipment and seek ag-orientated business, mainly out of the blue larger shed that you see in the distance. Some of these equipment and small sheds and accessory structures would be removed. According to the petitioner, he wishes to identify a small area for a 2-bedroom house at some point, either in this area or kind of around the corner in this direction. As mentioned in the staff report, there would also have to be an area designed for a septic system if there was going to be a smaller 2-bedroom house constructed on the property. Some of these buildings would be removed. We're currently now kind of walking in a southwesterly direction. The closest neighbor is in this direction, and if there was concerns about noise and operation machinery, this would probably be the closest point. There could be potential for screening if the Planning Commission and County Board felt that way. There is a neighbor has some small evergreen trees that are flanked on this corner, but there may be some mechanisms available to the petitioner to provide additional screening to mitigate any adverse noises and operation of equipment and stuff like that. Kind of a view here of the southern property line. Proposed driveway is mentioned that as you go to the east into the property, you would like to finish with a driveway access. There's an existing built-up platform or berm that he wishes to finish as the access, so it'd be self-contained in the parcel. We had previously received comments from the township. That's the neighbor's driveway that you see in below. Potential of sharing or getting an easement from the neighbor for that access, and it sounds like that is not viable at this point. So the applicant is looking at creating a self-contained easement along this direction for this existing driveway. As I mentioned, there is in the staff report, there is some wetter soils and floodplain areas as you get closer to the road. There's some wetland areas. There's a pond in that direction and some low-lying areas. Both on the south side, whatever is altered as far as filling has to avoid and not impact wetlands. What we're looking at straight ahead is the original ranch dwelling, which was parceled off in 2015. So the property line now runs somewhere down right below here. Yes, the mosquitoes were out. I can testify to that.
And this is the view, kind of looking at the lower area of what is available really for improvements and for buildings. That's
somewhat looking into the hill. The rest of the acreage goes to a triangular point of steep slopes, part of the bluff or hill in that direction. Just kind of wanted to maybe point out now, as we're walking back to County Road 15, or County Road 25, I should say, that the applicant intends to improve and build up this berm where the tall grass is, and which would be used for the driveway. That's County Road 25 in the distance. So there might be some widening involved in that area that has already been previously built up. The primary area is just this last 50 feet, depending on what comes out this area, some larger mature trees, and then there is pockets of wetlands. You get right down into the greater ditch. That would be protected waters. There's surface waters in that area, wetlands. You're going to see a pink flag right there. I believe that is where the property line is. And then he owns a width right up close to the other driveway that serves the neighbor. The applicant has submitted a driveway application to the County Highway Department, and I believe that is pending based on these conditional use permit requests. I'm just showing the segments of County Road 25, looking at the segment that goes to the north and back to the south towards Rolling Stone. And area here again. The biggest challenge is the immediate drop off into the greater ditch where there is considerable runoff. So there would have to be an appropriately placed, sized, and placed culvert to accommodate that. And that would be the neighbor's driveway of the bordering property. That should conclude the video footage for the ranked petitions.
Is there any questions for Eric? Don?
Have we heard from the township and the neighbors?
Yes, there is a revised township acknowledgement form that came on September 15th. I believe it's maybe red lighted in your packet. It would show what page it's on. But in the document that was signed by Keith Speltz, 305, that township indicates that they support the petition provided driveway does not encroach on wetland designated areas.
How about neighbors?
No comments from neighbors.
What did Daryl Buck have to say?
Daryl had commented essentially back in 2015. He had not reviewed this, and that it would be similar to the comments in 2015, and that as long as wetlands are avoided and not impacted by the driveway improvement, he would not have any comments on.
Any other questions of Eric? Thank you. Does the petitioner have anything that they would like to say at this time?
I'd just like to say.
Your name and address.
Oh, I'm Martin J. Rank. The address of this property is at 15315 County Road 25, and we live in an apartment in Rolling Stone, 146 Main Street, Apartment 1. This property, I would like to be able to develop out, but the way it is with no access, I'm driving through the neighbor's yard. The people that bought the house we get along very well with and work together. The other neighbor, Jim, can't get his last name, but he says if I used his driveway, it'd be okay, provided I was only for me, for access that way. So I wouldn't be able to do anything with my property up there. I do have all my equipment in storage. I have welders, I have my lathes. I think in the picture you could see I had the lathes covered up. And I'm widening the door from 12 feet to 14 feet wide right now. That's why you see that door like that.
That's in the blue building, right?
Right.
Okay.
There's no floor in there. I never finished the building up, so there's no floor in it, no concrete floor, no doors on it. The rest of the building is okay. It would need insulating and everything to use it, at least at a later date, and some heat and stuff, you know. But I'm really, and later on, we would like to build a small house, maybe a 2-bedroom, one for guests, if we had guests over. Otherwise, it would be just the two of us up there. And hopefully, I could pick up enough work and maybe even have some help to try to do some repair work for the farmers and stuff around there.
Okay.
So I guess that's it. I need access to get up there. I can't even get a truck in there if I wanted to pour concrete for the floor.
Okay.
And the culvert, I have room enough to put in up to 100 feet of culvert for like a 32-foot wide road. And the people that bought the house, they're planting a garden down there, and there's no water standing. There's no vegetation that is for swamp in that area. So I would like to see a road get in. I don't want to take any more time, and I appreciate it, you know. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Steve, move.
Second.
Arlie, seconds. All those in favor of opening the public hearing for docket 921-17-06, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing is now open. All those wishing to speak to docket number 6, either for or against, please come to the mic and state your name and address and make your comments. All those wishing to speak to docket number 6, either for or against, come to the mic. For the third and final time, all those wishing to speak to docket number 921-17-06, come to the mic and state your comments. Seeing no response, do I have a motion?
I move we close the public hearing.
Don moved and Arlie seconded that we close the public hearing on docket number 6. Do we have any questions or comments or anything from the commission members?
Have we got
Through the findings of fact?
Have we gotten, any type of site plan, so it's like a,
Yeah, there's stuff in here.
Yeah, there's pictures.
It's supposed to be in there, Steve.
203. Right here. 303. What? 293 and 303, it looks like they're duplicates.
I do have one comment. Reading,
Yeah, Sheree.
reading through the conditions and then going back to staff analysis, I don't know if you can hear me. On number 2, staff said board may consider a condition that limits or conditions amount of outside or exterior storage of equipment and materials, or possible fencing, screening, or landscaping. I'm not sure that I see that under the conditions, so we might want to consider adding.
Number 9.
Number 9 on the conditions, Chris says.
Okay,
Um,
which I seem not to have in my packet.
oh, you don't have,
No?
So do you have? This,
well, you got that in the
Right,
draft for the
okay.
findings of fact. It should be there.
I was looking
Yeah,
at the
you
one
were
that I was,
looking-
my
This
original one.
this came now on docket number 6.
Okay.
All right?
then-
Does that satisfy you?
Yes, indeed.
All right. At this point, does anyone have any comments on the findings of fact, or do I hear a motion, or what do I hear?
I move that we approve the petition, including the findings of fact and how many conditions?
9.
9 conditions.
There's 9 in the findings of fact, but how about
Well,
staff?
that is the conditions, right?
Oh, those are the
This
conditions.
doesn't actually
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's about screening.
Oh, okay.
Let me first disclose that I'm an acquaintance of the ranks, so if anybody has a problem with that, I'll withdraw my motion.
I guess my one thing I saw out of it all is no limit on hours. You know,
Oh,
I think we need to find out whether there's a second or not before you go into discussion.
Yeah, we need a second on
sorry.
Donnie's motion. Does anyone second it?
I'll second the motion.
All right, Steve seconded it.
On
Now we can discuss.
on hours, we've been through that, I think, with the Shell, no, who was it that did the welding shop where Corcoran is now?
Shell.
Al Shell.
Okay, I think we agreed that we shouldn't impose conditions on hours because
Because of agricultural.
needs. If something breaks down, they got to go to work. Okay.
although condition 5 does impose limits. Monday through Saturday, no limit on hours, subject to review in 2 years, no activity on Sundays or holidays.
That's in the,
Yeah.
Is that okay with the petitioner?
It's okay with me, but if somebody come up with some kind of an emergency on the weekend, I would be happy to take care of it.
Yeah, we understand. And you said Saturday, it is no limits for 2 years, right?
Sunday is limited, and I think you're saying you'd like to be able to fix something on Sunday if there's an emergency?
Yes, in case of somebody really needing something, yes. If I couldn't put it off for some other time, sure.
You don't want to work 7 days a week, Mark?
Okay, what's the feelings of the commission on this condition?
I don't see a problem.
We could discuss removing the Sunday limitation for a review in 2 years, as with the rest of it.
I'm going to suggest that we just vote it through the way it is, and if the petitioner finds that they need Sundays, they can come back and get a modification.
In 2 years.
I'll buy that.
Does everybody understand this?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Eric, did you not say that we needed to do 2 separate CUPs?
On one section, you're addressing the potential placement of a home, and the other, you are addressing the agricultural business.
Okay.
What may be confusing is that there's 16 findings because there was a merge of the 10 for the home as well as the additional 7. However, one was repetitive in nature, so that's why I had there's 16 findings that tried to address the whole project.
Okay, so
So
what
the
we are
findings
doing
of-
now is the motion and second has been made to approve the business. Both of them. Oh, okay, sorry.
Council?
I would actually disagree with that. I think the way that it was presented, the way that it was presented in the staff report, as well as the way that it's presented in the findings and is laid out, I think you can recommend approval as it is presented to you on the draft findings, which would incorporate full conditional use permits, as long as you're adopting the findings that would support full.
On a single vote.
I believe you can do that, yes.
Okay.
Is that agreement with everyone?
Would it improve anything to approve it as 2 motions?
Don, she just said we can.
The length of time we stay here, that it would.
Okay.
Is there any other
Question of how they're going to be presented to you going forward on multiple.
Okay. I'll shut up.
All right.
Clarification, point of clarification. So was that motion to approve 2 CUPs?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And you're okay with the second? All right. All right. So now we are voting on the motion to accept the petition with the findings of fact, which there are 17 or 16, and how many conditions? 9?
Yes.
Okay, and that's for docket 921-17-06.
So you need to make a motion to approve?
No.
Something we should.
Is there any other discussion?
Or just, he hasn't.
Joy.
Number, just a minute here. Number 2.
This is of the conditions, or?
This is findings of fact.
All right, findings of fact number 2.
The use will not be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent lands so that existing properties will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to the development of vacant land. Although the business would be operated from an existing old building without conditions limiting exterior storage of equipment, materials, and/or requiring screening or landscaping pursuant to Winona County zoning ordinance 9.1.5, the use could devalue adjacent residential housing. What is that saying? He has to use screening?
Well, the way that would currently read would be that because there was no screening proposed initially, it would not meet that criteria. You did just, if I recall correctly, add a condition for that. You could potentially amend that condition or the criteria to say that because of the new condition, that would be met.
Say that the
Condition number 9.
condition 9 provides for screening. So with condition 9, we could change that to will not. Is that?
You could change it to will because
I mean will.
yeah, will. That will address this.
Now, is that the wishes of the commission? Or just, do we have to amend this, council? All right. Does somebody want to make a motion to amend this, or?
Can I make a motion to amend my own motion? Sure. Okay, I am moved to amend my own motion to change that to will be sufficiently compatible.
That's number 2 of the findings of fact, right?
Whoever seconded that should.
Well,
And you have a comment from Eric.
Yeah, because of condition
Hold
9.
it. Eric wants to say, interject.
I want to say is maybe you might want to ask the petitioner a question that was, I think, short notice I just gave him, so you might.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Ring.
Number 9, first of all, I don't tend to have a lot of noise, but I'm planning on putting some more pine trees out there to kind of shield that there.
Okay.
And I really don't expect that there'll be any noise complaints coming from that end of the building. There's no doors or nothing on that side of the building. So I don't expect it to be a problem.
With this condition, though, you'll have to submit a plan where you're going to plant the trees.
But that shouldn't be a problem, will it? That you submit a plan that you're going to plant the trees?
Just a little sketch? Or?
Maybe you can get staff to help you plant them then, too.
We'll look into that.
Okay. Is there any other comments or discussion?
All those in favor of the amendment?
All those in favor of the amendment that we change number 2 in the findings of fact from will not to will, right? All those in favor of that say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It was passed unanimously. All right, now, is there any further discussion on the motion to approve with the amendment that was approved? Hearing none, all those in favor of docket 921-17-06 with the findings of facts and the conditions, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. The docket was passed unanimously by those voting. The next stop is the county board. Good luck. All right, now we go on to 7. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Who's from staff? Oh, Stephanie? Or, no, this is just findings of fact. Okay, all right, staff, who's got number 7? All right, Blake, you got the floor.
So, Tom C. Miller is looking to build a house on less than 40 acres, 6.2 acres to be exact, on his father Bernard's land in Alva Township. And this is just the statute that highlights why they need a conditional use permit for this dwelling. The house is located,
Sylvan Heights.
Yep, Sylvan Heights Road, and this is just overlaid to the east of Highway 74 and north of County Road 24 and 39. This is just a map of the proposed building site with the contours on it, and the proposed parcel lines. They had a site survey, and they also have an easement from their parents to use the driveway, so they won't be adding a new driveway. They'll just be coming off of the existing one. And they're going to share a well, and then they plan to site their septic system over here northeast of the house. And the site's on about a 3 to 6% slope. And this is just the look of it standing from the driveway looking south. And then this is looking towards the east. And then just a quick video that'll show the proximity of the site to the existing dwelling. So we're looking to the south. Spin around. Old barn, and there's the current house, and then I'll walk over. They're planning to take that existing building there down. I'm just pointing to where the building's going to be. So that structure there is going to come down, and there was an old barn there, so it's a previously disturbed site. But this parcel contains 78% prime soil, so we'll also need a prime soils variance, and we have their application for next month's hearing for the Board of Adjustment.
So most of the house is going to be where that building is.
It's going to be situated a little further out. They wanted a little more space than what they had. It's just going to be out in the field there. I think they said 10 to 15 feet. But they tried to take out as little agricultural land as possible, but there will be, I think they got 4 acres that are currently farmed here, and they're taking out less than a quarter, including the septic and the yard and everything. So. Any questions?
Yeah, is there any questions for Blake? Okay, at this time, is there anybody here for the petitioner? Okay, seeing that Blake says no, Steve moves to open the public hearing. Vince seconds it. The public hearing on docket 9-21-17-07 is now open. Those wishing to make comments either for or against this docket, please step forward, state your name and address, and make your comments. For the second time, anyone wishing to speak to docket number 7, step forward and make your comments, either for or against. For the third and final time, anyone wishing to speak to docket 9-21-17-07, please come to the mic, state your comments either for or against. Steve moved to close the public hearing.
Second.
Arlie seconded it. All those in favor of the motion to close the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is now closed. Commission members, do you have any, Donnie, do you have a question?
On the cover page, it states Bernie and Terry Siebenauer are the petitioners. On sheet 316, it indicates that son Tom and wife Julie are the petitioners.
Bernie owns the land and his son filed the petition, so I guess that's where they.
Okay. I'll disclose that I am the first cousin of Terry Siebenauer. She's my age, and this is her children that would hope to build next door. So if anybody wants me to stay out of it, I'll stay out of it.
Does anybody have any particular feelings? I guess you can still stay in the discussion, Don.
Thank you.
Arlie?
No, I was.
Oh, okay. Well, any other discussion? All right, let's continue to the findings of fact. Does anybody have any problems with them? Does anybody have any problems with the conditions attached to this?
What page are they on in the staff report? Or they're on the bottom of the, that's newer now, we're going to have them with here.
Yeah, they're right there, yeah.
I'll move to approve the petition with the findings of fact as stated in the conditions as presented.
I'll second.
All right. Steve moved to approve, and Terry, Kelly, excuse me. I get this so mixed up. But anyway, Kelly seconded it.
Yep.
Just as long as you don't call her Donnie.
Well, hopefully I'm not that bad off yet. Sorry, Kelly. Let's see. Now you completely
Now you
lost.
messed them up.
All right. Now, is there any further discussion? All those in favor of docket number 9-21-17-7 with its findings of fact and conditions for the CUP, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is passed unanimously. Okay. Well, Blake, you get to explain this to the county board then. All right, now we go to 8. Well, Arlie, we're past 10 o'clock.
This next request is twofold. Again, it's asking for 2 conditional use permits, and I guess based on how we handled a couple of requests before this, we can take a look at the findings and make one motion to address both conditional use permits. The property is in Saratoga Township. It is 40 acres. The petitioners wish to homestead this 40 acres. It also has a shoreland overlay district representing 300 feet from protected waters that meanders through the 40 acres. And thus, that is the reason why we have 2 conditional use permits. The one item is to allow a structure to be occupied as a dwelling within the shoreland district. In our zoning ordinance, whether it's a farm dwelling or non-farm dwelling, it is still only allowed as a conditional use permit. The second part of this request is somewhat different in that we've not had this type of request that I can recall. It is to allow a feedlot, a very small feedlot in this case, up to 10 animal units to be located within the shoreland district. That is also only allowed as a conditional use permit in our zoning ordinance. I guess at this point, I'd refer you to your mapping exhibits that you have
What
in
page?
your packet.
Does anybody help us out here? What page are the mapping exhibits?
329.
Yeah.
337?
All right. This one, I apologize, it's slightly distorted. So what we're looking at is the massed property, which is this 40-acre segment, complete 40. And in this map, I have the floodplain and the shoreland. The floodplain, the Zone A, the 1% is the blue shaded area. And the green highlighting that goes around in that same manner is the shoreland district. So essentially that's representing 300 feet on either side of the water. You can see a majority of that parcel would fall under that shoreland overlay district as well. This, I should point out, the applicants did have 2 variances in front of the Board of Adjustment this afternoon. Both of those variances were granted. Sheree can maybe add in at some point in this discussion too. The one variance was to allow a new house on prime soils, and the other part of that variance was to allow a feedlot within shoreland, which is also requires a variance according to the zoning ordinance. This image that I have up, it's quite busy, I apologize, but it's the color scheme that's in the GIS, and it's got 2 shades of green. This darker green is showing the prime soils. The lighter green is showing the shoreland. So when I select those 2 categories, again, this is the applicant's 40-acre segment. There's just an area that's upslope of a conservation pond that's not shoreland or not on prime soils. So it's just showing the level of
so even though it's
restrictions in play on this parcel.
Even though it's prime soils, it's not tillable, right?
Or is it currently tillable?
Yes, so we'll get into some video image and some other diagrams that kind of show the tillable acreage. This is the prime soils standalone map, and the prime soils as mapped is mostly tillable agricultural land. The applicants wish to build in this configuration right here. You can see the woodland. The non-tillable is mainly what you see as far as the woods and then the area surrounding the pond. But then there is 3 segments of prime soil. There's 1/3 of an acre in the northwest corner, 3.24, in which they wish to put their buildings, and 14.5 acres on the eastern side. Altogether, all considered, that represents 45% of that parcel. Our standard in the ordinance requires that it can be no more than 40%, that if they're going to build on a prime soil. So that's why they got caught into that variance requirement to do that, do this proposal. This one is not in your packet, but I thought this was a good discussion piece. Again, they wish to build here. This is a LiDAR map. This is showing 2-foot contours. And what this is illustrating is that the building site would be somewhere in this area, and it's around the 1090 elevation point. The shoreland feature in the stream area is below a 1070. So what this is showing is that we're on an area of roughly 20-some feet in elevation above the shoreland feature as far as grade and elevation. And the video will kind of pick up on that too. Also, in looking at this site, because of the setting and the high elevation, with the floodplain and the stream body, it actually was modeled as a high arc probability area. So in this case, we do have to do a phase 1 survey, archaeological resources.
And that has to be, the cost of that has to be borne by the county?
That's correct.
But that's not pertinent to this application, right?
Correct. I think I pointed out the reference. On a side note, after the variances were approved, and due to the fact that we just did one last summer, not even a mile to the south of this area because there was a road project. We replaced a bridge that was on the Yoder farm. Jean from UW La Crosse is very familiar, has materials, and her schedule is very, very tight, but we agreed that we could do this Monday morning and get it mounted just a walkthrough and maybe just a couple of seed probes. So this could be done relatively at ease and I think at a low cost to do
No.
that.
The one that you did last year, did that turn up anything, or?
No, it did not. No, it was, it had I guess a positive report for the project based on the setting.
Does everyone understand what he just said? Okay, go ahead.
And I guess we'll just look at the quick video. This is just off of the township. This video footage is in regards to Board of Adjustment item 92117 number 2, as well as Planning Commission agenda item PC 92117 number 8. The petitioners, Christy and Amanda Mast, are seeking 2 variances and 2 conditional use permits for a proposal involving the construction on a 40-acre parcel located in Section 28 of Saratoga Township. Currently just off of the Township Road, that is Old Fort Road. This is the view looking to the west, to the north, and in that direction would be the intersection of Old Fort Road and Cocker Drive, right at that point. The view looking back to the south along the Township Road. Petitioners wish to initially construct the building, I guess as far as the size, refer to your staff report. I believe it's 80 by 36 in this location. There'd be another structure eventually for a house, but to initially construct that structure, there would be elements of the zoning ordinance that require a conditional use permit. The first part being that if it's a dwelling within the shoreland designated overlay district, that is only allowable by a conditional use permit. I believe the building site would be approximately 140 feet, 150 feet from measuring on the GIS system from the ordinary high water mark of the shoreland corridor. You can see that this is kind of a elbow or bend that is mainly comprised of woodland, and below this wood line is a grade change that goes down to a stream, a tributary of Money Creek. So 300 feet out, which is most of what you see in this field, as well as a considerable amount located on the east side of the property, would be shoreland. And the second part of that conditional use permit is that if they have a building that's intended to have any animals whatsoever as a feedlot, that is additionally conditional use permit requirement. The variances that the applicants are seeking are to allow development on prime soils. The petitioners have looked at the 40 acres. There is other cropland on the northern part and on the eastern side, on the other side of this wooded ravine. However, those would present issues as well. Everything from a feedlot setback located to the north, to prime soils, to where a pond area is, and the topography wouldn't be favorable for that site. The second variance is to allow a feedlot established in the shoreland district, which I guess essentially the intent is not to allow intensive agricultural feedlot operations within shoreland. That would be new feedlots. In this case, the applicants have indicated that they do need a handful of animals for basic everyday farming purposes to homestead this 40 acres, involving horses, I believe some goats or sheep, and potentially some poultry. So, in order to allow that, they would need a variance. Staff has proposed some conditions as far as everything from the design of the building where the runoff might be generated to the size or cap of 10 animal units, essentially to address that proposal. You can see there is some degree of slope from where the vehicle's parked to the lower lying areas in this area. The sensitive features do follow around in this manner. And also according to looking at the archaeological probability map, this area is considered high, and mainly due to its upper setting on the shelf that sits above a floodplain shoreland area. A condition would be also that Winona County would have to conduct a phase 1 survey. The only comments I'd have regarding that is there was one not done too shortly ago, a short distance from here. There was a county road project and a contractor involved with kind of a bridge replacement project, and I think that's probably not even about a mile away, probably less than that from this location here. Very similar setting. Any questions?
Donnie?
I guess it doesn't make a lot of difference to me, but I'm looking at page 329, there's a DNR Public Waters Inventory map there. So this is right at Troy?
No.
This shows 29
It's in section 28.
over
Yeah,
here,
so
over
it's
here.
just a snippet that shows that this is the segment of protected water for this tributary.
So it's right along, oh, there's Old Fort Drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for Eric?
Yeah,
Steve?
So, are they having to pay for 2 conditional use permits and 2?
No, they paid one variance fee and one conditional use permit fee.
All right. Any other questions for Eric?
I see a township acknowledgement form, but I don't see any signature or anything.
That's correct. We have nothing back formally. I have heard that the township did meet and discuss it. I believe several of the members did look at the site, and the message that we got was that they had no comments. And I think that might be a good question just for the applicants to verify that point, but that's staff's understanding.
Okay, thank you, Eric. At this time, do the applicants wish to make any comments?
I think Eric covered everything.
All right. Motion?
Move to open the public hearing.
Steve moves to open the public hearing. Second?
Second.
Kelly seconds it.
Got it.
Good move, Gene.
Yeah, there we go, Arlie. All right. All of those in favor of opening the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, the public hearing is now open on docket 9-21-17-8. Anyone wishing to speak either for or against, please come forward, state your name and address, and make your comments. For the second time, anyone wishing to speak on docket number 8, please step forward and make your comments. For the third time, anyone wishing to speak to docket number 921-17-08, please make your comments.
Move to close public hearing.
Steve moves to close the public hearing. Kelly, do you want to second this one? Kelly will second this one. All right. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing is now closed on docket number 8. Discussion of the planning commission on docket number 8.
Across the wetland.
Cherie, would you like to explain what the variance committee found, or essentially fill us in?
Well, we did meet. Emily also talked to us about what 10 animal units might comprise, as did the petitioners. Maybe 4 horses, a few sheep or goats, maybe some chickens. The variances were both approved. I'm not sure what else to say about that. I'm not sure if the conditions would be.
With the feedlot officer, since we're kind of getting outside of the state law to allow it in feedlot site, by this essence, she'd put it on her inspection routine, so that therefore we can work with them to mitigate any runoff or manure management issues, even though it's a very small scale. But because it is there would be a confined building where some animals could be, and we do have a sensitive feature like a shoreland, that's would be appropriate in this case.
And feedlot is defined as structures and areas that are with no vegetation.
Correct.
So they'd be able to pasture wetlands and the farm across the field if they wanted to.
Correct, but I think that being said, we'd want to try to encourage a plan not to adversely impact water resources if all possible. Where those would be located, or pad areas where.
Has that plan been already formulated, or is that something that has to still be done?
That'll be something we will be doing moving forward with construction and things like that.
Will that be Emily's responsibility?
Is that Emily's responsibility?
And ours, I think.
All right, all right.
But that's all controlled by statute, rule, and ordinance, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's oversight there.
Right. Council, is this okay for, okay, thank you. All right. Any other discussion? Or can we go to?
I'll move to approve the petition with the findings of fact as presented and the conditions as
Second.
Arlie, or Steve moved and Arlie seconded it. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, all those in favor of docket number 9-21-17-08 with its findings of fact and conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This docket has passed, has been approved by or recommended to be approved by the Winona County Planning Commission. And the next stop for you is to take it when it's heard by the county commissioners. Good luck.
Thank you.
Eric, we don't have any more to go to. We got to go back to 1.
These go faster after 10 o'clock. Don't they?
All right, whose staff is number 1? This is a cemetery, right?
This is.
Okay, well, hopefully we don't have to be buried there immediately.
Correct. Well, I guess we bought some time. I didn't know if one of the representatives would show up tonight, but maybe things came up with them. Anyway, a private or public cemetery is allowed in the Ag District only by a conditional use permit. The request is to allow just slightly above a quarter of an acre, 0.258 acres, in a portion of the field that belongs to the Leon Miller acreage. Leon currently lives in this residence. This is Sandstone Drive, a Utica Township road, or in St. Charles, I guess it's St. Charles Township. And currently there's a private drive that serves a residence to the east. So that shows essentially to scale what a quarter of an acre would be. I believe they propose approximately 60 burial plots on that square footage. They've commissioned a survey from Roger Brand Surveying. So he's identified that by means of a survey. There's been monuments and pins to establish the four corners as allowed by state statute, as well as the meets and bounds description. With this, he's also included a 23-foot wide easement that comes off of the township road and runs the northern portion of that.
Is that same driveway?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a private driveway, but to
It has
make it
easement. Thank you.
accessible by public, there has to be a easement for ingress and egress to that cemetery. So Roger had that, and he actually had the neighboring property owner, which are the Bontraggers, sign that. That's strictly a legal issue, but it sounds like they're doing their legal homework to make this final and legal.
Now, Eric, is 23 feet sufficient in case when they're burying somebody, somebody else has a heart attack, and so they can get an ambulance in there?
Depends on how they park. Depends if there's horses and buggies involved.
Is that something that the highway department or some has to deal with, or is that something we're supposed to deal with?
Well, I mean, it is one of the conditions of allowing, it's the standard 7 findings. So obviously, adverse effects to the public road network are a concern. You know, it's
it's acceptable.
It's acceptable.
All right. Donnie?
Could it be arguable at some point that there shouldn't have to be defined access for a cemetery like this?
It's a private drive, isn't it?
It is. Oh, it's a, yeah, but say if somebody wants to stick a cemetery on the back 80 with no public access, who cares?
It gets into an issue, I think, that, it depends on the size and scale, because I think family members or heirs down the road, I think it comes more of a public good issue to make sure that interested parties can visit cemeteries, without peril of trespassing or non-access issues, and, I think.
In this instance with the size, I'll buy into that, yep.
The one concern that we have in the staff report, and that is reflective of the conditions, is when I look at the soil survey data for this site. And it's listed, this group, this black line that you see with the yellow kind of symbol there, it's just to show that this soil group is a 1954 Sphinx fine loamy sand. And in looking at that profile, you sometimes encounter sandstone bedrock substratum anywhere from 40 inches to 60 inches in the typical profile. How concentrated or cemented it is, it's really variable. It depends on the position, it depends on some of the parent material, and it could present problems for shallow excavations like a cemetery. The proposed condition is that we wanted to see at least 6 borings done that transact that quarter acre to make sure that, you hear the term 6 feet under, we want to make sure that the depth of bury would be able to accommodate what they plan. The other concern that we've had is that in some regard, this is kind of after the fact, because it came to our attention that Leon's wife, who passed away during the winter, was already buried out at the site. So I wanted to be very upfront about that. I did only, in the comments that I received, one phone call, and the one neighbor alluded to that fact that, this is already been put to use.
So they know they can dig that deep.
That's might be that's one thing I plan to follow up with on that, but I do want to see other borings to make sure that, that digging graves in that old horse pasture is conducive to how they want to use that property.
Does statute control burial depth?
It doesn't. Blake did some research for us, looked at some research papers, and it gets down to there's different ways of burial. Some use, I believe, like a agent to actually, what was the term? Do you recall that we were talking about that, where it's like an acid, it almost breaks down the remains into kind of an inert material, but it gets everything from soil moisture to pH to temperature, and based on the profile of the soil survey in most of the county, it does not present problems according to what we've seen as far as that information. Maybe Cherie has some knowledge on this too.
As full disclosure, we have a private cemetery on our farm, and I went through the CUP process before the board maybe 8 years ago. And there are, how do you say, if you bury someone within a certain amount of time, you can just straight away bury them.
A green cemetery, I
Exactly.
think.
72 hours, I think.
Which is what we set up. There are record-keeping regulations, and I mean, through state statute. But I don't know.
And my understanding is, I asked that question to the applicants, and it's not my impression that they're asking for a green cemetery. I believe they do practice embalming, so, whatever protocol has to take place, they'd have to follow state guidelines. And I believe they, a lot of times, do go through, I think, a funeral home in some cases. Maybe they, get the deposition permit, I think is what they call it. But I did include a couple, what I could find as far as state statutes, I included that in the packet too. Just showing a couple pictures, one standing from the northeast corner where a survey marker was put in. And then on this picture, this would be standing from the northwest corner looking back. The cemetery would be in this area, and then right in this here. And these pictures are from August. As you'll see in the video, there's already been a wrought iron, I guess you can roll the video and kill the sound because it was really, really windy when I was out there. Okay, this is the drive access where the, whoops. Oh, what did I do?
Look good.
Move that camera right up there.
Here we go.
Okay. This is Sandstone Drive, the township road. This would be the driveway entrance going into the Miller residence, and this is the private driveway that serves the Bontraggers, which borders this field on the northern side. And so the easement has been described to include 23 feet for an easement for access to the cemetery. This is the view looking to the west. As pointed out, there's a small hayfield that is owned by the neighboring property to the north. I believe it's Gary and Linda Heath. So they actually do have a small hayfield. And as far as developing those findings, that's the one element that we thought, well, that could present, if they could argue property values or depriving of future uses. There's a segment of hayfield that sits in between this private driveway and the township road. The iron fence looks like this has gone up in just the last month from even those pictures, but this was earlier in the week. And let's see if I can get a better view, but I believe that is supposed to represent now the perimeter of the quarter of an acre. And I believe there is the one site that has been already claimed.
It doesn't look like 75 feet, though. Maybe it is.
And we did receive a township acknowledgement form from St. Charles Township, and they indicated no comments on this request.
Are there any questions for Eric?
Where is she? One has been claimed.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Chris.
Since the petitioner isn't here, so the property, Leon Miller intends to retain ownership of the property and then maintain the cemetery for this foreseeable future?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Why is Jake Shetler on the?
Jake Shetler is kind of I think a trusted trustee of the community and he has been the person that has made the applications, that has, made the outreach to the planning department. Feels we have that, a previous relationship of working on applications, and Leon sounds like is not that comfortable working with staff.
Okay.
Jake has kind of been acting as the agent on this.
I saw something about the church on something here.
And you went over all they're aware that there's state regulations. That's not really our purview tonight. But
Correct.
They know about it.
On the Roger Brand letterhead, it says parcel description for Amish Church, Utica, Minnesota.
Yes, I'm not sure the connection with the church, but maybe.
And that may be where Jake Shetler comes in.
That could be part of the association that they've formed to.
Well, the Amish, they have congregations, but in most instances, they don't have a regular or church building. They meet in
each other's
houses or farms. I presume that this is the same as other Amish groups in the area.
Yes, and just from the comment, I really don't like to relay verbal information, but from what was relayed to me, is that they have one cemetery currently. I think it's more in the Saratoga, in the southwestern portion, and their desire was to have another option or another alternative more towards the St. Charles and Utica area, and that was thus the reason why they wanted it, available for some of the other families that were closer to the Utica, St. Charles area.
Okay, is there any other questions for Eric? Well, since we don't have anybody representing the petitioner, Steve.
Should we still open and close the hearing?
Steve moves to open the public hearing.
Second.
Arlie seconds it. So, at this time, we're going to open the public hearing for docket, let's see, number 1. I'm on the wrong page now. Docket number 1, 9-21-17-01. Anyone wishing to speak either for or against this docket, please come forward. For the second time, anyone wishing to speak to docket number 01, please come forward. Now, for all of you that are still awake, anyone wishing to speak to docket number 9-21-17-01, please come forward.
Move to close public hearing.
Steve moves to close the public hearing.
Second.
Arlie seconds it. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The public hearing for docket number 1 is now closed. Any discussion? Has everyone looked at the findings of fact and the conditions? Is there any discussion on those 2 items? Did I get one? Oh.
I don't need one.
How did I miss that?
The first one that was handed out with the red red underlines on it.
Oh, okay, you're right. I got that under the stack. Okay, I'm sorry.
Get it back.
All right, let's see.
You came the wrong one.
All right, let's see. Now,
Good try.
are we ready to vote?
You have to have a motion before you can vote.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's right.
I'll
Just-
move approval of the petition with the attached findings of facts and conditions as presented.
All right, Donnie moves, Arlie seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of docket number 9-21-17-01, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The docket is passed unanimously, and I guess I don't need to say the rest. At this time, we move on to item number 6 on our agenda, old business. Do you have anything that you want to say, either Kay or council?
I think what staff had talked about in our last meeting was just that you had a significant number of proposed zoning ordinance amendments that you've had a chance to review. We've made all the suggested corrections. The question for you at this point is, do you want to move forward with the handful that have been dealt with and schedule a public hearing? Or do you want to do any further review or address any further of the recommended ordinance amendments before we do that?
I guess I'd like to know which ones you feel that we've already
I believe they're
addressed.
indicated at the last pages of your packet, would indicate the ones that have been addressed and brought to you before.
Does somebody have those page numbers?
348.
348,
The blue grids.
okay.
Three-tone blue.
And Ms. Stanage, just to let you know, we did address your concerns regarding the imminent threats. We took that verbiage out of there because those can be handled elsewhere under statute, so didn't feel that it needed to be in there at all.
Well, I guess if you feel these have been addressed, we should review them to make certain that we feel they've.
That's the question is, do you want to see them again in October, or do you want to schedule a public hearing to receive input?
My feeling is we should take a look at them.
Again in October.
Everything else was, I believe, typographical type and formatting.
Maybe we'll have a limited agenda or something. I'm forgetting the discussion, so I wouldn't like to act on this tonight.
You say you would or wouldn't?
I would like to have some time to review and discuss.
You'd like to wait till October? Yeah.
So bring the full text back in October, and then at that point, we can discuss whether to schedule a public hearing.
Do we have to vote on that?
If it's consensus, I think we're fine.
And in the minutes, it was reflected that you would look into, at line 382, into my question about, he asked if the plaintiff prevailed, would they be awarded cost and fees? And at some point, I'd like to have an answer to that.
We'll make sure that happens. So we'll bring the full text back to you for October, and we can discuss this again then.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. Now, Kay, would you fill us in on the status of the one that we didn't have a planning commission meeting on for last month, and what goes on there so that we're all aware of where we're at? The Speltzel proposal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We should expect to see that coming back in October. In the meantime, the petitioners that withdrew temporarily their conditional use permit request are working on repairing an existing pit to prevent leakage instead of the liner using concrete. And They're working on the existing conditions to get into compliance. And then they're going to look at coming back to us. So that needed to kind of happen first, and they're working closely with Emily. They came in and talked to Emily and me about the project, but also about getting into compliance. Some of it was problems before they took over management and ownership of the site, and they're looking to improve the number of compliance variations into the future and do a good job. So
But you think that will be on the agenda for October?
I believe so at this time. That's my understanding.
Do we all understand where we're at on this one then? Okay? There's no questions or, okay. Let's see. Updates, Board of Adjustment, Cherie.
The Board of Adjustment heard 2 petitions today. The one that was approved for the masts, and then another which was denied. It regarded he had 2 options that he was bringing forth for a large storage building, and 2 variances regarded setbacks, and that those variances were denied.
Okay. That concludes your report?
That does.
Okay. Steve, County Board update.
So the last item I think that we approved here was Justin and Jennifer Spalding for a home on less than 40 acres, and County Board followed suit with Planning Commission and approved what the Planning Commission's recommendations were on it. So.
Okay. That concludes your report? Okay.
Move to
Now-
adjourn.
Okay. Kelly moves to adjourn. Second. Arlie seconds it. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And if anybody would have said